Chapter 216, Asura God, I have dignity too. Enough, stop playing dead. Having given the Asura God another thorough beating, the god of evil looked down condescendingly at the Asura God lying on the ground. Ah, cough, cough. You've already beaten me, what else do you want? I am a god king too, and I have dignity. God of evil, goddess of kindness. If the Asura God had said this in the past, they wouldn't have doubted it for a second. But the Asura God now always made people feel that the word dignity was worlds apart from it, making it hard to imagine that such a quality could exist on it. Silence was the best response. Even the current Asura God flushed red, turned over, and faced upward instead. This is an insult to me. Ahem. The god of evil coughed and didn't care much. A beating was already given, how could such a trivial matter be considered an insult? Get up, we have serious business to discuss with you. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness hoisted the Asura God up from left and right, making the Asura God feel as though it truly had no dignity left at all. Serious business. Aside from beating me, what other serious business could you possibly have to tell me? The god of evil said solemnly, you've also seen just how important Su Chen is to me in kindness. Immediately take back the god position legacy you forced upon Su Chen. This is no joke, you should know that if you cut off our hope of advancing further, I really will kill someone. As he spoke, a thick killing intent emanated from the god of evil. Even the Asura God, an expert who played with slaughter, couldn't help but feel a bit startled. Su Chen has already initiated the Asura God's divine trial. Even if I can terminate it, I cannot completely strip it away. If it is forcibly done, it will only damage Su Chen's foundation, and it will still be very difficult to strip it clean. You wouldn't want to see Su Chen's future ruined and end up with nothing at all. Right, straighten up your attitude for me. Hardly had it stood up for a moment when the tone of the Asura God's speech made the god of evil very unhappy. Being able to do it and being willing to do it are two different things. Kindness and I will naturally protect Su Chen when you strip away the legacy. Still no. The Asura God continued. You've also seen that as long as there is even a shred of Asura divine power left, your divine force fusion will be hard to carry out. If you protect Su Chen, I will be even less able to strip the legacy clean. Although what the Asura God said was an objective fact, it likewise had its own selfish motives. Watching the god of destruction leave everyone far behind and actually step onto a realm above the god king. And the god of evil and the goddess of kindness were unwilling to fall behind either, coming up with the path of complete god position fusion. Looking back at itself, with a bruised eye and swollen nose, not a single piece of good flesh on its whole body, aching everywhere. Watching others make progress felt even more agonizing to the Asura God than regressing itself. Now there happened to be this opportunity to meddle in the plans of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness. If there was going to be progress, everyone would progress together, don't even think about shaking it off to go through ascension alone. No, wait, it was the one left behind to be alone. You don't need to worry about that. We will ask destruction to help clear away your residual power. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness had very superficial research into the new power of the god of destruction, but they still perceive the power of erasing everything contained within it. With the ability of the god of destruction, the Asura divine power remaining within Su Chen's body should be able to be thoroughly purged. Only, in this way, the god of evil and the goddess of kindness would owe the god of destruction a huge favor once more. Forget it, with too many debts, you don't feel the weight, with too many lice, you don't feel the itch. Owing one favor is owing 10 favors is also owing. Maybe after owing so much, the god of destruction would just forget about it. The Asura God wanted to find other reasons, but the fierce gazes of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness both landed on it. The killing intent in the eyes of the goddess of kindness was even superior to that of the god of evil. The Asura God couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. It knew that if it dared to refuse again, these two fellows might really pull off a fatal strike. Fine, I agree, but if anything goes wrong, don't blame all the responsibility on me. Humph, as long as you behave yourself, that's fine. Under the explicit or implicit, distant or close attention of many deities, the god of evil and the goddess of kindness hauled the Asura god towards Destruction Castle. Let me go, let me walk myself. My dignity, my face, my. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness remained unmoved and never let the Asura god's feet touch the ground. When this scene fell into the eyes of the many deities, they couldn't help but shake their heads. Who could have thought that the once unrivaled god realm law enforcement god, the slaughter fiend who made people turn pale at the mere mention, would actually become so devoid of dignity? Sure enough, mixing in the god realm, relying solely on personal strength was not enough. They were all god kings, and those people came in pairs. If they didn't bully you Asura god, who else would they bully? Destruction Castle. The god of destruction watched the arrival of the three people with a cheerful smile. Destruction, life is all right over there, right? Arriving at Destruction Castle, the ferocity in the eyes of the goddess of kindness had already vanished, transforming back into that benevolent, compassionate goddess of kindness shining light over the god realm and numerous lower realm. Although it had lost its dignity, the Asura god still curled its lips. What are you putting on an act for? When you were beating me up, how come I couldn't see a shred of kindness in you? She's fine, cultivation hit a bit of a snag, and she needs to recuperate in the forest of life for a period of time. That's good. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness did not inquire further. They guessed that the so-called cultivation snag of the goddess of life was perhaps because she wanted to advance further, just like the god of destruction, which caused the problem. They were already god kings, how difficult was it to advance even further? Compared to the goddess of life either imitating or seeking the help of the god of destruction, it was still better for them to walk hand in hand like this. The god of evil stated their purpose of coming to the god of destruction and promised another favor. How is it? Destruction, do you have confidence? The god of evil, the goddess of kindness, and even the Asura god all knew that whether the power of the Asura god could be completely cleared away depended entirely on the god of destruction. However, the mentalities of the three of them were completely different. Two of them hoped the god of destruction could do it, while the other eagerly anticipated that the god of destruction couldn't do it. As for who was the one and who was the two, those who understood naturally understood. The hesitation of the god of destruction did not stem from worry about his own ability. He was weighing whether the benefits of letting Su Chen shoulder the god positions of all three god kings were greater, or whether the benefits of retaining only the god positions of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness while fusing these two god positions were greater. After pondering for a moment, the god of destruction still felt that breadth wasn't as good as depth. If Su Chen could also be promoted to above the god king, even if only by half a step, it would still be better than retaining the god positions of all three god kings at the same time. All right, I'll help with this favor. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness beamed with joy, while the Asura god looked as if its parents had died. This expression of the Asura god fell into the eyes of the god of evil, who immediately greeted it with heavy fists. I knew you didn't want to see kindness and me advance further. Who are you making that morning face for? Do you have to manage whatever expression I make? I see it and I'm unhappy, so I'll manage it. Bang. Chapter 217. Only Asura god is truly having a headache. Su Chen came to his loyal god realm once again. As someone who had yet to become a god, entering and leaving the god realm was just like returning home. Who else could possibly enjoy this kind of treatment? Many god second generations might not even have this kind of treatment, right? No, it should be said that no god second generation had this kind of treatment. Even Tang San's sons, daughters, and grandchildren, whose specific species couldn't be clearly distinguished, had never been served by the four god kings together. Moreover, this time Su Chen's consciousness didn't just return to the god realm, even his physical body came along. Meanwhile, in the lower realm, the heaven human sect. Oh heavens, the sect master has disappeared again. The elders rushed from various places to the sect master's hall. The last time Su Chen left, there was at least a trace of red light across the sky to make it convenient for them to search. But this time, Su Chen simply vanished directly without leaving the slightest trace. Yan Yan, Yi Lingling, did you see how the sect master disappeared? Grand Elder Douluo asked. I saw it. I was right inside the hall at the time and saw the sect master disappear with my own eyes, Douluo Yan said hastily. I just saw a flash of white light, and then the sect master vanished. A flash of white light. Could it be some kind of spatial spirit ability? While the elders were discussing, a flash of lightning flickered through Douluo's mind. There's no need to discuss this anymore. The sect master is definitely safe and sound. Everyone disperse. What Douluo received was, of course, a hint from Lord Thunder God. After the crowd dispersed, Douluo Yan then asked Douluo, "Grandfather, where on earth did the sect master go?" Douluo wore a cryptic expression, accompanied by dense envy. "A miraculous place, a place we will also have the opportunity to enter in the future. The God Realm, too. Think the sect master went to the God Realm before even becoming a god. Just how much must Lord Thunder God appreciate the sect master?" Douluo had already cultivated to the same realm as Qian Douluo. If he became a god in the next step, he would be able to achieve ascension to the God Realm. But now he discovered that one could enter the God Realm even without becoming a god. Douluo Yan and Yi Lingling looked at Douluo speechlessly. It seemed like he said a lot, but it was the same as saying nothing. Forget it. Since Douluo had said so, they stopped worrying. After all, when it came to concern for Su Chen's safety, Douluo was no less than them. God Realm. As a regular visitor to Destruction Castle, Su Chen was just like returning home, losing interest in looking around. Instead, Asura God's condition drew even more of Su Chen's attention. You were Asura God, right? Although the god of destruction had told Su Chen many times about Asura God's shameless actions, and Su Chen had chimed in many times as well. But wasn't the situation different now? He had already obtained Asura God's god position legacy. Since he took someone's things, his attitude naturally had to be more proper. How did you end up like this? Compared to Su Chen's curiosity tinged with a bit of schadenfreude, Asura God felt nothing but complete shame. It was over. The first time it met its successor, it let him see such a humiliating side of its own. Where was its dignity? Asura God, who had given up all pretense in front of the gods of the God Realm, still felt embarrassed in front of this upcoming successor. To think that it, Asura God, had dominated the God Realm for countless years, how on earth did it end up in this state today? That's right, this fellow is Asura God. The legacy you suddenly obtained earlier came from it. The goddess of kindness's gentle gaze carried a dense sense of appreciation. The more she looked at this successor, the more she liked him. God of evil, come. Take a look. I didn't expect that after burning the thoughts of evil and kindness, there would still be such an effect. Your body has actually become so compatible with our divine force. The god of evil and goddess of kindness had previously been busy beating up Asura God and weren't aware of Su Chen's other changes. Now that they saw it, they were even more delighted. Su Chen's bodily changes undoubtedly brought huge benefits, whether for passing down their god positions or for the fusion of the divine force. Of course, accompanying this delight was naturally anger towards Asura God. This fellow Asura really deserved to die. Immediately after, the god of evil and goddess of kindness told Su Chen the reason why they let him enter the God Realm this time. Su Chen, you should have sensed it earlier as well. The fusion of the evil divine force and the kindness divine force is of great benefit to you. Su Chen nodded. He hadn't even become a god yet, and a path that might surpass the god kings was already prepared for him. It really gave one a headache. Seeing that Su Chen was persuaded by the god of evil and goddess of kindness, Asura God still wanted to make a little struggle. God of evil, goddess of kindness, have you ever thought about a question? Su Chen had to subvert the entire Douluo continent to collect so many thoughts of good and evil. How much time would it take to collect that many again? You can't possibly let him subvert the Douluo continent once more, right? In that case, the thoughts of evil would far surpass the thoughts of kindness. Just as Asura God's voice fell, the god of evil and goddess of kindness spoke simultaneously. Shut up. None of your business. After speaking, the goddess of kindness felt that her voice was too loud, which seemed somewhat inconsistent with her usual persona, so she immediately smiled gently at Su Chen again. This is indeed a trouble, but you don't have to worry. We won't force you to collect so many. Thoughts of good and evil again in a short period. You can take your time, the god position will definitely be yours. As for your lifespan, you don't need to worry either. Even if you stay in the lower realm for thousands or tens of thousands of years, you will still remain forever youthful. Fearing that Su Chen would find it troublesome, the goddess of kindness could be said to have resolved all the worries of Su Chen she could think of in advance. All right, but I have a question. Su Chen understood their thoughts, and it wasn't that he couldn't bear to give up a god position, but rather. What question? We will definitely help you solve it. The god of evil and goddess of kindness had never been so lenient and magnanimous toward anyone before. Take a look for yourselves. The divine force inside my body seems to have undergone some changes. Su Chen actively released his divine force. The evil divine force and kindness divine force appeared together, and there was also a trace of Asura divine power accompanying them, seeming to have latched onto them stubbornly. These three types of divine force had not yet undergone fusion, but they had become inextricably entangled. The expressions of the god of evil and goddess of kindness changed drastically, and they immediately crowded in front of the divine force released by Su Chen. Asura god's expression also changed drastically, though a trace of stealthy joy appeared and was quickly concealed. Su Chen was surrounded by the god of evil and goddess of kindness, while Asura god stood on tiptoe in the back, very much wanting evil and kindness to step aside. But in the end, Asura god wisely chose to step back a few paces. Damn it, how could these three types of divine force become entangled together? This time, without even asking Asura god, they all knew that it would be very difficult to strip one of the god position legacies out of Su Chen's body. God of destruction, do you have any ideas? After researching for a while with no solution, the god of evil and goddess of kindness could only seek the opinion of the greatest almighty among them. The god of destruction glanced sideways and said, "No way, they are entangled too tightly. Give up, I'm powerless as well." The god of destruction issued the final diagnosis, and the expressions of the god of evil and goddess of kindness darkened instantly. Asura. A voice suppressing volcanic anger within calmness rang out. Asura god, who had just sneaked over to the door of Destruction Castle, felt its legs go weak. This really isn't my fault. Before Asura god could finish its sentence, the god of evil's sandbag-sized fist was right before its eyes, and the goddess of kindness's purse-sized fist followed closely behind. While the god of evil and goddess of kindness were delivering a mixed beatdown, the god of destruction and Su Chen chatted while watching the show. You don't need to worry about the issue of the divine force being entangled. For you, this might be a good thing. The god of destruction was worried that Su Chen would overthink. I understand, it's just that senior god of evil and senior goddess of kindness are going to have a headache, and there's also Asura. Only Asura god was truly having a headache. Chapter 218, Making the Spirit Tool a Collector of Thoughts of Good and Evil. As soon as he returned to the Heaven Human sect, Yi Lingling and Du Guyan crowded around. Sect Master, you've finally returned. Sect Master, where did you go? Du Gubo hadn't explained things clearly. Although Yi Lingling and Du Guyan felt that there was a high probability nothing would happen to Su Chen, they were still very curious about where he went. Moreover, he had disappeared all of a sudden, and it didn't look like any spatial spirit ability. Su Chen didn't keep it a deep secret like Du Gubo. He pointed casually at the sky and said, I didn't go very far, just took a trip to the God Realm and had a chat with a few God Kings. The God Realm. And you had a chat with the God Kings. Du Guyan and Yi Lingling wore dull expressions. Is this something an ordinary spirit master could say? If anyone else had said these words, they would have been certain that person had gone mad, or was simply bragging. Yet the one saying this was Su Chen. Du Gubo also rushed over briskly shortly after Su Chen's return. Sect Master, did you really go to the God Realm? Grandpa, you knew. Du Guyan was quite speechless at Du Gubo's previous behavior of telling only half the story. Sect Master, what does the God Realm look like? Is it any different from the Douluo continent? Su Chen said, it's just like that. Once you go there often, it's not novel anymore. I just wandered around the castle of the God of Destruction, and there are still many places I haven't been to. As soon as these words came out, Du Gubo felt a tightness in his chest. Listening to that meaning, Sect Master, you weren't even going to the God realm for the first time, saying it so calmly. What do the God Kings of the God realm look like? Are they majestic? Are they easy to talk to? Mortals who had never been to the God realm held endless curiosity about it. Recalling the apologetic gazes of the God of Evil and the Goddess of Kindness when they sent him back, Su Chen nodded slightly. The God Kings of the God realm each spoke so nicely, and every single one of them was a talent, making them very easy to talk to. Especially the Asura God. His body was beaten until there wasn't a single good spot left, and right before Su Chen's return, he was still being choked by the God of Evil, yet he still cast a gaze full of high expectations at him. Sigh, the Asura God has had a hard life. Su Chen interrupted Douluo and the others' continuous questioning and instructed. Go find Hu Chengxing and bring him here. I have something to instruct him. Yes. Douluo personally went to find Hu Chengxing. Sect Master, if you have any matters, just give your orders. Your subordinate will definitely complete them with all my might. Hu Chengxing wasn't afraid of Su Chen giving him too few tasks, he was only afraid that Su Chen would forget him, making it rare for him to even be assigned tasks. You have already unified the Douluo continent. Next, you will investigate those misbehaving old nobles, centralize power, and repartition the land that has been occupied by those nobles for thousands of years. Hu Chengxing listened while taking notes. These were one of the common operations after a dynastic change, and this wasn't Su Chen's main purpose. Afterwards, I will have Lu Gao and the others help you promote spirit tools across the world. Hearing this, Hu Chengxing froze for a moment. Promoting spirit tools among spirit masters was easy to talk about, but judging by the sect master's meaning, it seemed it didn't stop there. Sect master, what do you mean by promoting it across the world? Of course it means popularizing them everywhere and covering every industry. The research and development of spirit tools by the Heaven Human sect was not limited to what was used in combat by spirit masters. Under Su Chen's request, Lu Gao had specifically set up a team researching livelihood and industrial-type spirit tools, and they had already achieved results. The reason why the God of Evil and the Goddess of Kindness felt somewhat embarrassed towards Su Chen was because they felt that having him collect more thoughts of good and evil was somewhat difficult for Su Chen. However, Su Chen had prepared for this long ago. Overthrowing the empire that Hu Chengxing had toiled bitterly to unify was clearly not a good idea. The God of Evil and the Goddess of Kindness were also prepared to wait for hundreds or thousands of years, or even 10,000 years. However, Su Chen clearly didn't have that kind of patience. Since the Douluo continent had already been unified, let spirit tools spark the wave of industrialization. Although dynastic changes brought significant shifts, placed in the long river of history, they were actually just like that, especially since the history of the Douluo continent was easily counted in tens of thousands of years, and people didn't pay much attention to history either. However, embedding spirit tools into the lives of everyone, including those ordinary people who could not become spirit masters, would have an impact large enough to change the lives of everyone on the Douluo continent from then on. Hu Chengxing asked, Sect Master, your plan requires quite a few people. Are the spirit tool masters of our Heaven Human sect enough? Cultivating spirit tool masters was not something achieved overnight. Rest assured, those livelihood-type spirit tools are even simpler than military spirit tools. Their operation and the forging of most parts do not require spirit tool masters to carry out, even ordinary people who are not spirit masters can use them. Since Su Chen wanted to collect thoughts of good and evil, naturally it was impossible to only do a part of it. Assembly line work had been designed long ago, just waiting for the workers to enter the factory. Controlling spirit tools was equivalent to controlling most of the financial resources of the Douluo continent. In the future, hammering iron and tightening screws in spirit tool factories would be an important growth experience for many ordinary people and spirit masters. Yet Su Chen still felt it wasn't enough. In addition, I will have Lu Gao personally take charge of supervising the construction of ocean-going ships. There are other lands overseas, and I will have an elder cooperate with you to seize another piece of land. Yes. While recording, Hu Chengxing started sweating profusely. He originally thought that no matter what task the sect master gave him, it wouldn't exceed unifying the Douluo continent. But now, he knew he had been superficial. How could the aspirations and goals of the sect master be something a mediocre person like him could fathom? Whether it was promoting spirit tools, uprooting old nobles, or conquering another continent once more, none of these were simple matters. Fortunately, Su Chen had already arranged and designed everything for him. Otherwise, if it were all left to him alone to take charge of, Hu Chengxing feared his head would swell with a splitting headache. Go on, go all out. I'm optimistic about you. When you finish these, you'll be able to return to the Heaven Human sect. Yes, thank you sect master for your trust and importance. Your subordinate will definitely do my utmost. Although Hu Chengxing deeply felt the heavy pressure on his shoulders, as long as he could return to the Heaven Human sect, it was worth it. Wasn't it just changing the world and opening up the future? He, Hu Chengxing, would risk it all to make the sect master satisfied. Sect master, what are you doing this? Sending away Hu Chengxing, who had been coaxed into high morale, Douluo still felt somewhat uncomprehending about Su Chen doing this. Su Chen pointed at the sky. I have my own plans. Once the ocean-going ships are built, you will personally lead a team out to sea and occupy the Sun-Moon continent. Capturing cities and seizing territory. Bullying little kids, Douluo's efficiency was higher for that. With Douluo's current poison arts, there was no need to poison all living beings to death. Whether it was paralysis or fainting poison, it was enough to make people panic at the mere mention of it. With the current strength of the Sun-Moon continent, probably no one could stop Douluo. God Realm. Su Chen's series of dazzling operations had not been fully understood by either the god of evil or the goddess of kindness. However, both of them were somewhat excited. It seemed Su Chen would give them another surprise. The collection of thoughts of good and evil might no longer need to be measured in units of hundreds or thousands of years. Chapter 219, Threat of the God of Evil, Yu Shaogang wants to see Qian Runshui. Asura, you'd better pray that after Su Chen collects all the thoughts of kindness and evil, our divine forces can successfully merge. Otherwise, humph, I'll crush you to death. This failed divine force fusion between the god of evil and the goddess of kindness had already made them furious. If it happens again, even if the Asura god doesn't die, he will lose half his life. The Asura god was originally somewhat secretly pleased in his heart. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness couldn't shake him off to progress alone. Even if they wanted to improve, they had to take him along. This gave the solitary Asura god a feeling of having found a home. Although this home was one he forcefully squeezed into and was very unwelcome, it was still better than watching others make progress right before his eyes. But with the god of evil putting it this way, the Asura god felt a bit chilled inside. Don't be impulsive. I don't want the divine force fusion to fail either. Let me think, there must be another way. The Asura god wanted to improve, but he wanted to die even less. Since the divine forces of the three of them could intertwine, it showed that they were fated, but a complete fusion still required a catalyst. Outside Spirit City, Yu Shaogang changed into a new set of clothes and made his increasingly sparse flat top gleam with oil. Spirit City, Yu Shaogang, have returned. Even though he came because of Tang San's persuasion, seeing Spirit City for real still filled Yu Shaogang with irrepressible emotion. Just as crestfallen as he was when he left Spirit City back then, just as elated and proud he felt returning now. However, what Yu Shaogang regretted was that this time he wasn't bringing his disciple to participate in the Spirit Master competition. Although he could see Donger again, he couldn't prove his spirit theory or let the world recognize his talent. Forget it. There will be opportunities in the future. With Little San's talent, sooner or later he will reach the apex of a Spirit Master. After entering the city, Yu Shaogang headed straight for the Supreme Pontiff Palace. The closer he got to that sacred place, the faster Yu Shaogang's heart beat, and his blood felt as if it had recovered the dynamic flow of youth. Halt. However, right at the foot of Supreme Pontiff Mountain, Yu Shaogang was stopped. What kind of place was the Supreme Pontiff Palace? Was it somewhere a disreputable-looking flat top like him could casually approach? The token is right here. Step aside. The Supreme Pontiff token. The guard knight took the token and looked at it, his attitude instantly becoming much more respectful. However, the doubts in their hearts only increased. How could such a token fall into the hands of a fellow whose spirit power was unranked? Yu Shaogang coughed and said with full confidence, "You can hand this token to your Supreme Pontiff. She will know at a glance. Your Supreme Pontiff and I are old acquaintances, she will definitely see me. Wait here, I will go report to the Supreme Pontiff." New ruler, new ministers. The former Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong had abdicated, and although the new Supreme Pontiff Qian Runshui had not yet held her succession ceremony, she was already equivalent to the Supreme Pontiff. Now was the exact time for people like them to perform well, and they must not accidentally offend the Supreme Pontiff. "Your Majesty, someone at the foot of the mountain requests an audience." Qian Runshui, who was buried in official documents, raised her head. Having been Supreme Pontiff for not long, Qian Runshui was already somewhat tired of it. Instead of dealing with these tedious matters, wouldn't it be better to quiet down and cultivate properly? However, because her position as Supreme Pontiff was snatched, Qian Runshui was holding back her breath, not wanting people to think she was inferior to that woman. Bibi Dong, so she hadn't been lazy either. Coupled with her experience as Crown Prince in the Heaven Do Empire, tedious as Spirit Hall's affairs were, it wasn't too difficult for her to handle them. "You're saying a spirit master who looks like he's in his 50s or 60s wants to see me?" The knight presented the token, and after seeing it, Qian Runshui had even more doubts. She had never given this kind of token to anyone else, and she had lived under an alias for a long time. Not many people knew her true identity. At this moment, Lingyuan Douluo coughed. "Your Majesty, I might have guessed who this person is." Lingyuan Douluo was female, and having defected to Qian Runshui in the Star Do Great Forest, she was entrusted with heavy responsibilities by Qian Runshui to assist her in handling Spirit Hall's work. Qian Runshui indeed needed such a person to help her become familiar with Spirit Hall's working procedures. Lingyuan Douluo had joined Spirit Hall since she was young. Although the matter between Bibi Dong and Yu Shaogang was sealed off by Qian Xunji back then, such a huge matter, and one concerning the Holy Maiden and a good-for-nothing's relationship, had leaked out more or less. Although Lingyuan Douluo did not know all the details, she could also guess the origin of this Supreme Pontiff token. Never expected that after so many years, she could still witness such aged gossip. However, right in front of Qian Runshui, Lingyuan Douluo hesitated on how to speak. "It has to do with that woman, right? Such a Supreme Pontiff token is something only that woman could casually distribute. Speak, who did she give it to?" Lingyuan Douluo glanced at the reporting knight. Qian Runshui frowned and still waved her hand to dismiss the knight. "Your Majesty, this Supreme Pontiff token was indeed gifted to someone else by the former Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong. That person's name is Yu Shaogang." Yu Shaogang. Even though Qian Runshui had lurked in the Heaven Do Empire for many years, she was not unfamiliar with the name Yu Shaogang. The famous Grand Master, a good-for-nothing who hadn't even reached level 30 by the age of 50, was also notoriously famous in the Spirit Master's world. "I remember Yu Shaogang as a member of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, right? Why would that woman give him this token?" This. Lingyuan Douluo rather tactfully recounted Yu Shaogang's experience of coming to study in Spirit City when he was young, as well as his slight intersections with Bibi Dong. Even though Lingyuan Douluo tried to be as tactful as possible, Qian Runshui still heard what was implied within. "That woman, is she blind?" Even though she had already fallen out with Bibi Dong, suddenly hearing that Bibi Dong actually had a relationship with Yu Shaogang, that famous good-for-nothing, Qian Runshui still felt extremely angry. If not for the angel martial soul being undeniable, Qian Runshui would have even started to doubt her own identity. "Please calm your anger, Your Majesty. This subordinate will go chase Yu Shaogang away right now." "Wait." Qian Runshui called out to Lingyuan Douluo. "Bring him to see me. I want to see what ability this Yu Shaogang has to make that woman look at him in a different light." Yes. Only then did Lingyuan Douluo leave the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Yu Shaogang, what kind of bullshit Grand Master? Only that crazy woman with a bad brain would fancy such a good-for-nothing. Thinking about how Yu Shaogang, this good-for-nothing, once actually had the chance to become her father, Qian Runshui felt a wave of nausea. And upon seeing a titled Douluo come to pick him up, Yu Shaogang straightened up quite a bit. As expected, Donger valued him, she even sent a titled Douluo for such a small matter as bringing him up the mountain. Lead the way ahead. Lingyuan Douluo walked in front with a barely contained smile on her lips. This fellow still thought the one who wanted to see him was Bibi Dong. With a new chapter added to the aged gossip, Lingyuan Douluo's long-dormant passion for watching drama ignited. Lingyuan Douluo, I wonder how by Her Majesty the Supreme Pontiff is doing. Yu Shaogang, having heard from Tang San about Bibi Dong's injury, asked with concern. Fine, of course she's fine. You'll know once you see her. Lingyuan Douluo rarely had the mood to patiently converse with a spirit grandmaster who inexplicably possessed full confidence. Chapter 220, Either blind or brain damaged, Yu Shaogang gets beaten. Arriving outside the Supreme Pontiff Palace, Yu Shaogang paused for a moment. From the foot of the mountain to the top, Lingyuan Douluo had not deliberately accommodated Yu Shaogang's strength, so Yu Shaogang appeared somewhat panting, with sweat covering his head. Yu Shaogang wanted to see Bibi Dong in his best state and could not afford to look so disheveled. Taking out a handkerchief to wipe away his sweat, after catching his breath slightly, Yu Shaogang then said, Lingyuan Douluo, let's go in. Lingyuan Douluo had not urged Yu Shaogang the entire way. In Yu Shaogang's view, this clearly meant that Bibi Dong's attitude toward him had influenced Lingyuan Douluo. Otherwise, how could a titled Douluo be polite to him? You walk in front. Many thanks. Yu Shaogang smiled smugly. Although his strength was lacking, even powerful titled Douluos still had to treat him politely, didn't they? Donger. Walking into the Supreme Pontiff Palace, Yu Shaogang thought he would see Bibi Dong at first glance, and a gentle, Donger, had already slipped past his lips, but the person inside the hall turned out to be a stranger. Who are you? Donger, cough cough, where is your Majesty the Supreme Pontiff? Yu Shaogang felt that something was amiss. Could it be that the people of Spirit Hall went behind Donger's back to do something to her? Yu Shaogang, this is our Supreme Pontiff, Your Majesty Qian Runshui. Qian Runshui. Your surname is Qian. The sudden change of the Supreme Pontiff in Spirit Hall had already shocked Yu Shaogang immensely, and Qian Runshui's surname drew even more of his attention. As the son of the sect master of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, Yu Shaogang had a fair understanding of Spirit Hall's history, not to mention that he had once come to Spirit Hall to study. The Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall had long been held by the Qian clan. For someone with an outsider's surname like Bibi Dong to become the Supreme Pontiff was instead an extremely rare occurrence. Could Donger have been stripped of power by the people of the Qian family? Yu Shaogang couldn't help but recall the Supreme Pontiff he had once met, Qian Xunji. To this day, he still remembered the gaze the other party gave him as if looking at trash, a look that remained deeply etched in his bones. Yu Shaogang's throat moved, and his voice became much quieter. What have you all done to Bibi Dong? This time, Yu Shaogang didn't dare to say any threatening words, let alone claim he would destroy Spirit Hall. After all, the person in front of him now was not Bibi Dong, she would not endlessly tolerate his presumptuousness. Yu Shaogang was still very good at reading the room and sizing people up. In this regard, he and Shrek Academy's specialty of bullying the soft and fearing the hard coincided. Especially since this new Supreme Pontiff's gaze went from disbelief at the beginning, to bafflement later, and now to a mix of anger and disdain, giving Yu Shaogang a very bad premonition. Especially the way Qian Runshui looked at him now as if looking at trash, causing Yu Shaogang to involuntarily recall Qian Xunji's gaze from the past. Elder Lingyuan, are you sure you didn't bring the wrong person? No matter how Qian Runshui looked at him vertically or horizontally, she couldn't find a single redeeming quality on Yu Shaogang. Just such a fellow who had neither looks nor strength, and was even so submissive, how on earth was that woman attracted to him? Lingyuan Douluo hurriedly said, this person is undoubtedly Yu Shaogang. Let alone Qian Runshui, even Lingyuan Douluo couldn't figure out Bibi Dong's thought process. With someone as useless as Yu Shaogang, let alone the late Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong, any elder, cardinal, branch master of various places in Spirit Hall, or even a large handful of low to mid-level personnel in Spirit Hall could crush him, right? One could only say that. Different people have different tastes, some people's tastes were just heavier than average. While Qian Runshui and Lingyuan Douluo were talking, let alone interrupting, Yu Shaogang didn't even dare to breathe heavily. The current Spirit Hall was obviously no longer the Spirit Hall when Bibi Dong served as the Supreme Pontiff, and behind him no longer stood the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan of the upper three sects as a backing. If Spirit Hall really wanted to crush him now, it truly would be no different from crushing an ant. However, no matter how well behaved Yu Shaogang was, Qian Runshui still looked at him with an indifferent gaze. Yu Shaogang, were you asking about Bibi Dong just now? Her position as the Supreme Pontiff is mine now. What, do you have any objections? The sweat that Yu Shaogang had wiped dry not long ago broke out again. Yu Shaogang felt his throat grow parched, and his heart was about to jump out of his throat. Of course Yu Shaogang was worried about what had happened to Bibi Dong, he still had that little bit of affection for Bibi Dong. But this change in the Supreme Pontiff position of Spirit Hall was obviously abnormal, it was highly likely a usurpation. If he wasn't careful, he was very likely to be treated as Bibi Dong's accomplice, and whether he would be killed or carved up then would be hard to say. I indeed had a little friendship with the former Supreme Pontiff, and didn't know she had already abdicated. I truly have intruded a lot, please forgive me. That's right, Yu Shaogang chickened out. Such talk as destroying Spirit Hall at all costs, he only dared to bluster about it to Bibi Dong. Now that Bibi Dong was not here, facing even a sliver of the oppressive force displayed by Qian Runshui, Yu Shaogang's calves were already starting to tremble. Hey Tilda, Qian Runshui sneered. If Yu Shaogang had been a bit bolder and questioned her about Bibi Dong's whereabouts, Qian Runshui might have still thought slightly higher of him. But Yu Shaogang's performance made it truly impossible for Qian Runshui to see any redeeming features. At this moment, she was incomparably certain that either Bibi Dong's vision or her brain had a problem, and most likely, both had problems. HMPH. Qian Runshui let out a cold HMPH, faint holy light radiating from her body as she released a bit more of her aura. With a thump. Facing this aura, Yu Shaogang could no longer stand and directly collapsed to his knees on the ground. Your Majesty the Supreme Pontiff, please spare me. I have no intention of offending Spirit Hall whatsoever. Yu Shaogang could be said to have lost all face, but the fear in his heart overwhelmed his so-called pride. Of course, Yu Shaogang didn't think this was cowardice on his part. He still needed to keep his useful body alive to teach Little San and absolutely could not die here. With Little San's talent, he could definitely surpass all spirit masters. Before Little San grew up, he, Yu Shaogang, absolutely could not fall. For this, even temporary compromise was worth it. What is your purpose in coming to look for Bibi Dong? Qian Runshui's voice sounded, just like interrogating a prisoner. Yu Shaogang's mind spun rapidly, considering what would be appropriate to say. The Supreme Pontiff had changed, the rhetoric prepared before coming was obviously no longer suitable. Let alone going after the person who wounded Donger, the new Supreme Pontiff would likely want to thank that person instead. Yu Shaogang guessed that the reason Bibi Dong was forced down from power was precisely because of the injury incident Little San mentioned. I once studied in Spirit Hall and had some friendship with the former Supreme Pontiff. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan was destroyed, leaving me with no one to rely on. I came to Spirit Hall hoping to ask the former Supreme Pontiff to take me in for the sake of our past thin relations, so I could live out my remaining years in peace. Yu Shaogang temporarily fabricated an excuse. It wouldn't expose Little San and the others, nor would it make people think his relationship with Donger was particularly close. Furthermore, his identity as a surviving descendant of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon might still be worth a bit. To demonstrate the magnanimity and goodwill of Spirit Hall, this new Supreme Pontiff shouldn't mind letting go of a good-for-nothing like him, right? But just as Yu Shaogang was thinking whether he could muddle through, he suddenly felt a great force strike him. With a crisp, ha, sound, Yu Shaogang rolled far away. Chapter 221, Yu Shaogang's bones aren't that hard. Spouting nonsense. If you dare lie again, it won't be as simple as just a slap. Yu Shaogang thought the lies he told were quite reasonable. But in the eyes of Qian Runshui, who had unlocked the angel god legacy, his expression and actions thoroughly exposed his lying behavior. With a casual wave of Qian Runshui's hand, a spirit power slap landed squarely on Yu Shaoqing's face. If Qian Runshui hadn't held back her strength, it wouldn't have been as simple as Yu Shaoqing rolling a few times on the ground. However, this only made Qian Runshui even more dissatisfied. What a piece of trash. She didn't even dare use too much force to hit him, he was far too fragile. Hiss. Yu Shaoqing clutched the left side of his face. He felt that this half of his face had completely lost all sensation, and to the touch, it was noticeably swollen compared to the other half. The hatred in Yu Shaoqing's heart was indescribable. Let alone when his old lover Bibi Dong was the supreme pontiff, even back when Qian Xunji was still on the throne, no one had ever hit him like this. On the surface, Yu Shaoqing didn't dare show the slightest bit of anger or hatred. But deep down, he had already secretly sworn an oath. Today's humiliation, I, Yu Shaoqing, have remembered it. I will definitely destroy Spirit Hall at all costs. After crawling back up, Yu Shaoqing still wanted to argue. Your Majesty Supreme Pontiff, every word I said. Before he could finish, his entire body shuddered violently, as if he had been targeted by some powerful spirit beast. Think carefully before you speak. Whether you live or die depends entirely on how you answer. Yu Shaoqing's arguing voice instantly became barely perceptible. This new Supreme Pontiff was simply too unreasonable. She was neither an acquaintance, like Bibi Dong, nor anything like the other elders and bishops of Spirit Hall. Yu Shaoqing had never dealt with anyone from Spirit Hall who would resort to violence over a disagreement like this. What on earth is going on with Spirit Hall? How could someone like this even become the Supreme Pontiff? Yu Shaoqing hardened his heart. To save his life, he had to say something substantial. Your Majesty Supreme Pontiff, I do have some relationship with the former Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong. The reason I came this time is because I learned she was injured, and after inquiring about the whereabouts of the person who hurt Bibi Dong, I came to report it. Yu Shaoqing thought to himself that this time she surely wouldn't be able to tell he was lying, right? What he said this time was basically all true. Then, he heard Qian Runshui's even more biting voice. How did you know Bibi Dong was injured? The news of Bibi Dong's injury had not spread out. Not many people knew about it. Aside from the Heaven Human sect, practically everyone else was in Spirit City. When Bibi Dong was brought back to Spirit City from the Stardo Great Forest, the Heaven Human sect party attracted most of the attention, and Bibi Dong was quickly taken back to the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Moreover, after locking Bibi Dong up, Qian Runshui had specifically ordered a news blackout. Even if word could leak out, it wouldn't have happened this fast. And even if Yu Shaoqing had found out, how on earth did he know who had injured Bibi Dong? By the time Qian Runshui went to the Stardo Great Forest, Bibi Dong was already injured, and the Tang clan members had already slipped away. But she still learned what had happened previously from the mouths of Devil Bear Douluo and the others. Bibi Dong was injured by a blood-red demonic sword, and that sword seemed to have become Su Chen's spirit. If they really had to say who injured Bibi Dong, they could barely say it was Su Chen. Since Yu Shaoqing knew both that Bibi Dong was injured and who had injured her, the answer was practically ready to burst out. And Yu Shaoqing's face instantly turned pale. The so-called wisdom of his Grandmaster was actually nothing special. That, he who obtains the Grandmaster obtains the world, spoken by some blind investor, was basically just like bullshit. But Yu Shaoqing really didn't want to expose Tang San's whereabouts. Aside from fearing that this would cause Tang San to lose his life, Yu Shaoqing was even more afraid that Tang San would think he had been betrayed, thereby severing their master-disciple bond. Speak, where are Tang San and his father? Unlike Bibi Dong, Qian Runshui truly wanted Tang Hao and Tang San to die. Now that she had become the Supreme Pontiff and her strength had risen, the information on Tang San and his father was delivered right to her doorstep. Of course she had to go avenge her father. Yu Shaoqing lowered his head, his heart tangled in a fierce struggle. If he didn't speak, he would die right now. But if he did speak, whether he could survive or not was still uncertain. Lingyuan, take him to the tribunal. Before Lingyuan Douluo could reply, Yu Shaogang was scared so badly that his legs went weak and he collapsed to the ground. The tribunal was the place Spirit Hall used to judge and punish sinners. Yu Shaogang had stayed in Spirit Hall for quite some time before. Although he had never been to the tribunal, he had heard of its infamous reputation. If he really went there, it would probably be pretty much the same as going to hell. Yu Shaogang's performance fell into Qian Runshui's eyes, causing her to view his status as even lower than trash. What, are you planning to talk? Yu Shaogang's dazed brain recovered some clarity, and he realized one thing. That was, his bones weren't as hard as he thought, and his pride wasn't as valuable as he believed. Without even being sent to the tribunal yet, just knowing he was about to be sent there had already terrified Yu Shaogang. Yu Shaogang's self-perceived bumpy fate and miserable background were actually, for most people, days close to paradise. He was indeed looked down upon by his clansmen and many external spirit masters, but from birth until the destruction of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, he had basically never suffered any real hardship. Even after leaving the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, relying on the clan's reputation and still being able to collect subsidies from Spirit Hall every month, his life could not be considered impoverished. I'll talk, but once I speak, you cannot kill me. Qian Runshui had already lost interest in communicating with Yu Shaogang. The slight curiosity she had felt toward Yu Shaogang due to her incomprehension of Bibi Dong's actions had now completely turned into disgust. Even though Qian Runshui knew Bibi Dong frequently went crazy, she still felt that for Bibi Dong to take a fancy to someone like Yu Shaogang, it was more than just simple madness. Speak. As long as what you say is the truth, what harm is there in sparing your life? Yu Shaogang still wanted to obtain a more definitive guarantee, but the surrounding pressure made it difficult for him to hold on. Little San is at Shrek Academy. After truly saying it out, Yu Shaogang looked as if he had lost his soul. It was over. Having leaked Little San's whereabouts, Little San would definitely never forgive him. However, a new thought quickly appeared in Yu Shaogang's mind. That's not right. The reason I exposed Little San's whereabouts was entirely caused by Little San asking me to come to Spirit Hall. In fact, Little San was the one who leaked his own whereabouts in the first place. And if not for Little San, how could he have willingly taken such bizarre risks and ended up in this state? As a mere spirit grandmaster, isn't it normal that he couldn't withstand the methods of a titled Douluo? Little San is so sensible, he will understand his hardships. Can I leave now? After finding an excuse for his action of revealing Tang San's whereabouts, Yu Shaogang instead felt as if some burden had been lifted off him. Qian Runshui said to Lingyuan Douluo, take him to the underground secret room, and lock him up right next to that woman. Learning the whereabouts of Tang San and his father was considered an unexpected pleasant surprise for Qian Runshui. Your Majesty Supreme Pontiff, you cannot go back on your word. Everything I said is the truth. Yu Shaogang panicked, thinking Qian Runshui was going back on her word and still wanted his life. Whether it is true or false, I'll know once I go to Shrek. You'd better pray that Tang Hao is truly at Shrek. Now Yu Shaogang became somewhat uneasy again. Little San and the others shouldn't be leaving Shrek right now, right? Please, absolutely not. Chapter 222, Bibi Dong in the Secret Room, a confrontation between mother and daughter. Is this your means of disposing of me? Locking me up in this secret room? I only regret not choking you to death when you were born. Inside the secret room beneath the Supreme Pontiff Palace, seeing Qian Runshui walk in, Bibi Dong's calm voice contained extreme madness. An ordinary secret room certainly could not lock up Bibi Dong. However, this secret room was filled with Angel's holy light, which suppressed Bibi Dong's spirit power, preventing her spirit power from ever recovering. Angel God and Rakshasa God were inherently extremely antagonistic deities. Placed within the Angel's holy light, Bibi Dong was restricted by the Angel divine force every moment, which was more effective than any cage. Coupled with the wounds left by the Asura demon sword on Bibi Dong's body, trying to forcibly escape this place was harder than ascending to heaven. But for Bibi Dong, what was hardest for her to accept was not having the position of Supreme Pontiff snatched away by Qian Runshui, nor being detained by Qian Runshui, but that the place of her imprisonment turned out to be a secret room once again. This caused Bibi Dong to constantly recall her past experiences, her entire person being devoured by hatred and malice. Bibi Dong's state made Qian Runshui frown slightly. However, she was also prepared. Given Bibi Dong's arrogance and madness, suddenly falling to such a state, it would be strange if she had no complaints at all. I came to ask you about something. Oh, you even have the ability to lock me up here, and yet you still have things that trouble you. Are there rebellious fellows who refuse to submit to you, or do you have self-awareness and are being crushed out of breath by the official business of the Spirit Hall? Bibi Dong just wanted to see Qian Runshui encounter trouble. The more trouble Qian Runshui had, the happier she would be. It could also add a trace of amusement to her boring confinement life. Qian Runshui calmly shook her head. The elders are all dedicated to their duties, not to mention having grandfather and the consecration hall patrons to help. No one up and down the spirit hall disrespects me. As soon as Qian Runshui said these words, Bibi Dong's expression instantly turned much colder. Qian Runshui continued, and that official business you mentioned that supposedly crushes me out of breath, although somewhat tedious, it is not difficult to handle. It is hard to imagine someone failing to handle even such a small matter. Bibi Dong was furious. She felt that Qian Runshui had come to see her simply to mock her on purpose. Qian Runshui's progress was ridiculously smooth, simply too smooth. When Bibi Dong was the supreme pontiff, the consecration hall would never give her full support, and she always had to guard against that old fellow Qian Douluo. When it came to Qian Runshui, those rebellious subjects turned into loyal ministers, capable ministers, and wise ministers. In what aspect did she, Bibi Dong, do worse than Qian Runshui? Get out of here. Although called a secret room, Qian Runshui did not overly mistreat Bibi Dong. Apart from not being able to see the sun, this secret room was not much different from Bibi Dong's bedchamber in the Supreme Pontiff Palace, and all daily necessities were fully provided. The manic Bibi Dong threw everything she could grab at Qian Runshui. However, when these things came within 3 jong of Qian Runshui, they slammed into an invisible wall and shattered into pieces. Qian Runshui still maintained an expressionless face, waiting for this wave of madness from Bibi Dong to end. After going crazy for a while, Bibi Dong, whose spirit power was restricted, became somewhat out of breath. Only then did Qian Runshui ask, "What on earth is your relationship with Yu Shaogang?" Qian Runshui had asked Lingyuan Douluo, but she also knew very little, and Qian Runshui had not gone to ask Qian Douluo. If grandfather had been willing to tell her, he wouldn't have kept it from revealing even a hint to her for so many years. Moreover, Qian Runshui wanted even more to hear Bibi Dong tell her personally. Qian Runshui kept gazing at Bibi Dong's expression. Sure enough, when the 3 words, Yu Shaogang, appeared, Bibi Dong suddenly quieted down. But immediately following that came anxiety and anger. What are you going to do to Shaogang? I'm warning you, if you dare to harm a single hair on Shaogang's head, I will absolutely not let you off. Qian Runshui, who had maintained her calmness all along, still couldn't help her inner heart fluctuating slightly. Bibi Dong's care and concern for Yu Shaogang exceeded Qian Runshui's expectations. She hadn't expected that after so many years, Bibi Dong would still remember that trash so unforgettably. This share of care and concern was something Qian Runshui had never experienced from Bibi Dong. Qian Runshui took a deep breath, and only then said to Bibi Dong, "He is right next door to you." What? Bibi Dong abruptly looked toward that wall, as if she wanted to forcefully pierce through the stone wall and see the scene behind it. You captured him here, why are you targeting Shaogang, what are you going to do to him? Upon discovering that it was impossible for her to see through the thick wall no matter what, Bibi Dong began to question Qian Runshui hysterically once again. Seeing Bibi Dong's performance, Qian Runshui felt that many things no longer needed to be asked. Unfortunately, Yu Shaogang was not captured by my people, rather, he delivered himself right to our doorstep. What do you mean? Even though her situation had not changed at all, a wave of sweetness welled up in Bibi Dong's heart. Shaogang was here to find her, he must have come to find her. Bibi Dong didn't even stop to think whether the news of her imprisonment had leaked, her whole heart felt that Yu Shaogang had come to save her. In terms of deceiving, Herself, Bibi Dong's talent was even higher than her spirit master talent. Otherwise, she couldn't possibly treat a piece of trash like Yu Shaogang as her white moonlight. Qian Runshui's gaze towards Bibi Dong showed a trace of pity. What do you think Yu Shaogang came to the spirit hall for? Bibi Dong glared fiercely at Qian Runshui. None of your business, you'd better release him quickly. Bibi Dong's strength and psychology were currently at their most vulnerable state. Learning at this time that Yu Shaogang was right next door further consolidated Yu Shaogang's status as her white moonlight in her mind. Qian Runshui let out a sneer. You think Yu Shaogang came to the spirit hall to care about you, to save you? Because he still has feelings for you. Take your brain out of your heels and think about it. Ever since meeting Su Chen, Qian Runshui had developed no small amount of doubt about her own wisdom. But every time she communicated with Bibi Dong, it would increase Qian Runshui's confidence a little bit. At least there was someone whose brain was even less adequate than hers. Although Qian Runshui hadn't yet said what Yu Shaogang actually came to the spirit hall for, Bibi Dong already felt that all of Qian Runshui's subsequent words would be slanders against Yu Shaogang. You really are ridiculous. Yu Shaogang joined forces with the Tang clan father and son, wanting to use you and treat you like a monkey. Bibi Dong, you truly are hopelessly stupid. Yu Shaogang had even revealed Tang San's whereabouts, making other matters even harder to hide. He confessed the whole story of why Tang San asked him to come to Spirit City, detail by detail, and added his own guesses. Qian Runshui now told Bibi Dong all of Yu Shaogang's confession word for word. Hey, you wouldn't think that THNESE elaborately fabricated lies you told could fool me, right? Bibi Dong still maintained a look of, really, I don't believe it. Then I will let you hear it with your own ears. Chapter 223 6 strikes in 1 second is not the limit, a powerful punch strikes. Qian Runshui left a crack open in the door of the secret room and asked Yu Shaogang the same question again from outside the door. Of course, to prevent Bibi Dong from rushing right out, Qian Runshui had restricted Bibi Dong's mobility and ability to speak beforehand. This allowed her to hear all of Yu Shaogang's confessions without being able to interrupt in advance. Qian Runshui also knew that Bibi Dong had a knack for self-deception. Without restrictions, Bibi Dong would definitely interrupt Yu Shaogang's confession. Your Majesty the Supreme Pontiff, I have told you everything I know without a single lie. Please spare me. Yu Shaogang thought Qian Runshui asked again because she doubted what he said before, so she was verifying it once more. Yu Shaogang felt that Qian Runshui was much too scheming. If what he said hadn't truly been the truth, he might not have been able to keep his second answer identical to the first. No wonder Donger couldn't defeat this supreme pontiff of the Qian family. With Donger's intelligence, even with formidable strength, she would inevitably fall into traps at times. After having Lingyuan Douluo lock Yu Shaogang in the adjacent secret room, Qian Runshui finally walked back into Bibi Dong's secret room and lifted the restriction on Bibi Dong. Don't tell me you didn't hear it. Can you still continue to deceive yourself? Bibi Dong's eyes split with fury. As soon as Qian Runshui lifted the restriction, both of her hands reached out toward Qian Runshui's neck. However, given Bibi Dong's current state, it couldn't cause Qian Runshui the slightest bit of trouble. In the blink of an eye, Bibi Dong was pinned to the ground by Qian Runshui, whose lower legs pressed down on Bibi Dong's waist, rendering her unable to move. Behave yourself. Qian Runshui inexplicably grew a bit interested. Ever since she was young, she had received countless cold glances and too many stern faces from Bibi Dong. Now, leaving Bibi Dong completely powerless to fight back, Qian Runshui felt much more relaxed and pleased. It seems you still refuse to face reality. Think it over carefully. With that, Qian Runshui let go of Bibi Dong and retreated toward the door of the secret room. Wait. Perhaps Bibi Dong had recognized reality. Even when Qian Runshui let go of her, she did not bare her claws to attack Qian Runshui again. What else is there? Bring him over. I want to see him, or you can lock him and me in the same secret room. Qian Runshui's expression turned cold. Bibi Dong, you really are hopelessly deluded. Do you think I locked Yu Shaogang up to find you a gigolo? No matter how much Qian Runshui didn't want Bibi Dong to be her mother, she could never let that trash Yu Shaogang and Bibi Dong rekindle their old romance. Bibi Dong's face flushed red. Qian Runshui, saying words like that simply dirties my ears. In Bibi Dong's heart, her relationship with Yu Shaogang was pure and flawless, unable to tolerate even the slightest taint. Qian Runshui's gigolo remark was an offense to the pure love between her and Yu Shaogang. Moreover, the reason Bibi Dong hadn't renewed her ties with Yu Shaogang all these years wasn't because she thought Yu Shaogang wasn't good enough for her, but because she felt she wasn't good enough for Yu Shaogang. Absurd, you really are beyond saving. Qian Runshui shook her head and walked out of the secret room. Left entirely by herself once more, Bibi Dong's manic heart subsided a lot. At the mere thought that Yu Shaogang was right next door, Bibi Dong even bizarrely gained a trace of tranquility. If Shaogang could be locked in a secret room forever just like me, even if we couldn't meet, the days in this secret room wouldn't be so hard to endure. Actually, the moment after Bibi Dong proposed seeing Yu Shaogang, she felt some regret. Looking like this now, she was no longer that aloof supreme pontiff who could adorn herself with a noble status. If she went to see Shaogang in such a desolate state, would Shaogang be disappointed? It seems Hu Chengxing is indeed doing a good job. At least Heaven Do City is just as stable as it was during the original Heaven Do Empire era. Su Chen walked along the streets of Heaven Do City with Snake Lance Douluo. He hadn't come to Heaven Do City on a whim, but was on his way to Slaughter City and just wanted to take a look by the way. The Slaughter King of Slaughter City had already left, and the enforcement team captain had also died. However, Tang San wouldn't have the chance to get the snowy swan kiss in this lifetime, so Slaughter City was able to be preserved. Su Chen wasn't going to Slaughter City for training, nor was he going to acquire the Slaughter God domain, but to complete the divine trial of Asura God. The divine trial of Asura God didn't have a fixed template. Previously, when 300,000-year spirit rings were snatched from Tang San's hands, Asura God hadn't said how many divine trials had been completed. And now going to Slaughter City, Asura God was even negotiating and discussing terms with Su Chen. Knowing that if the next divine force fusion failed, Asura God would lose at least half a life, Asura God was truly somewhat frightened. He racked his brains trying to figure out how to let the Asura divine power, which was like a third party, smoothly fuse into the evil divine power and good divine power. Since the fusion of evil divine power and good divine power required the thoughts of good and evil as firewood, he would add another kind of dry firewood. Slaughter City gathered the most ferocious and bloodthirsty killing intent on Douluo continent, making it the most suitable third kind of firewood. Su Chen, who was just planning to cross Heaven Do City and leave from the other side, sensed that a nearby street was somewhat unsettled. Let's go and see what's going on. He had just said Hu Chengxing was doing a good job and Heaven Do City was very stable, yet trouble broke out so quickly. Walking over to take a look, Su Chen saw a group of burly men in uniform outfits holding clubs, waving them so fast that they were almost blurring into afterimages. At this speed, 5 or 6 strikes per second were definitely there. The ones watching the excitement weren't just Su Chen and Snake Lance Douluo, many ordinary citizens of Heaven Do City were also watching the commotion without a hint of fear. Served them right. These nobles deserve to be beaten hard with clubs. Watching this makes my blood boil. I wish I was the one swinging the club. Old man, your legs wobble even when you walk, and you still want to join the Huey Guard. Bah, I just wanted to try out the feeling of beating those noble lords with my own hands. Without Su Chen needing to ask, these onlookers from Heaven Do City basically made the situation clear. Those beating people were the Huey Guard specially established by Hu Chengxing, whose job was to suppress and arrest those unruly former nobles. Hu Chengxing definitely completed the task given to him by Su Chen with guaranteed quality and quantity. The property, land, peerages, and official positions of those former nobles had been mostly confiscated. Of course, these former nobles wouldn't be happy about it. There were not a few making trouble or even rebelling. For people who dragged their household servants and guards into the streets to cause trouble, what awaited them were the heavy clubs of the Huey Guard. The reason it was 6 strikes per second wasn't because that was the limit of the Huey Guard, but because 6 strikes per second was enough. As for these guys howling in pain while being beaten, afterwards those who should go to prison would go to prison, and those who should be beheaded would be beheaded, they couldn't stir up any waves. Not just Heaven-Do City, everywhere else was the same. If these noble lords who occupied the vast majority of resources wouldn't step aside, how could Hu Chengxing promote spirit tools to various places and industries? How could he confiscate resources to pioneer a new era? Hu Chengxing felt that it was one thing for these bastards not to sympathize with how hard he worked for the sect master, but how dare they actually resist? This was no longer a matter of ordinary unruly people, they had to be met with heavy-handed strikes. Chapter 224, Legendary Hard-to-Kill King, Nine-Headed Bloody Crimson Bat King. This is the entrance to Slaughter City. The small town at the original entrance of Slaughter City had been burned completely to the ground by Sword Douluo. Quite a few trees had already grown in the cleared, barren area. If one did not know the exact location, it would really be difficult to find the entrance. This time, Su Chen did not use the God of Destruction version of the map. Asura God was guiding the way the entire time. The voice navigation version of Asura God fell short of the God of Destruction's version in one aspect. Asura God always liked to cough while navigating, and without knowing better, one would think a QQ notification had sounded, greatly diminishing the user experience. Sect Master, let your subordinate scout the path ahead. Snake Lance Douluo still faithfully fulfilled his duties, and after opening the entrance buried by soil and rocks, he actively requested to scout ahead. Given Su Chen's current strength, let alone Slaughter City without the enforcement team captain and the Slaughter King, even if they were both present, Su Chen could still come and go as he pleased. However, since it was thoughtful of Snake Lance Douluo, it was fine to let him scout the way first. After Snake Lance Douluo leapt down, Su Chen waited for a short while before jumping down after him. Sect Master, it has been cleared out. After entering the tunnel, Su Chen found the corpses of a few fallen spirit masters lying on the ground, which at a glance were killed by Snake Lance Douluo. It seemed that Slaughter City had undergone significant changes compared to before. At the very least, before Tang San and the others left Slaughter City, this tunnel was guarded by only one terrifying knight. Let's go in and take a look. The further forward they walked, the more obvious the smell of blood permeating the air became. Who is it? Are you newcomers? I've finally waited for you. Walking out of the passage, a scrawny fallen spirit master saw them, and a look of surprise appeared on his emaciated face. Ever since Tang San and the others wreaked havoc in Slaughter City, no new fallen spirit masters had entered from the outside. After the surprise, that emaciated spirit master burst into wild joy. Great, you've come at a good time. Quickly hand over your blood to me. That fallen spirit master, who looked as emaciated as if he had a serious illness, squeezed out a burst of strength from somewhere and pounced toward Su Chen. Slap tilde. Su Chen gently waved a palm, and the pouncing fallen spirit master was instantly knocked flat. However, Su Chen held back his strength, and this bastard was not dead yet. I ask, you answer, do you understand? One had to admit that the fallen spirit masters of Slaughter City were truly sensible of current affairs. The fellow trampled under Su Chen's feet nodded with difficulty. Spare my life, this villain will say whatever you ask. After the Slaughter King left Slaughter City, what happened here? How do you know that the Slaughter King left? Aside from a few people who could leave through Hell Road, Slaughter City was a dead zone that was practically impossible to exit once entered. This fallen spirit master did not expect that the newly entered person was not only powerful, but also had such an understanding of Slaughter City. Su Chen exerted a tiny bit of force with his foot, and the sound of cracking bones rang out. Ah, Lord, spare my life, spare my life. One arm of this fallen spirit master was shattered beyond recognition, looking as though it had been smashed to pieces by a giant boulder. You only need to answer my questions, this time is just a small lesson. Yes, this villain remembers, this villain will speak right now. This fellow was still very afraid of death, so he immediately endured the pain and blurted out everything he knew. That fellow is really hard to kill, he's actually still alive. From the mouth of this fallen spirit master, Su Chen learned that the enforcement team captain, who should have died at the hands of Tang Chen, was actually not dead. Furthermore, after Tang San and the others left Slaughter City, he even proclaimed himself the Slaughter King, replacing Tang Chen's position. However, this Slaughter King of his did not have Tang Chen's strength, nor did he obtain the legacy of the Asura god. Moreover, what was more crucial was that the enforcement team captain seemed to have suffered quite heavy injuries as well. What kind of people were in Slaughter City? Every single one of them was a lawless figure. Immediately, many fallen spirit masters expressed dissatisfaction with the enforcement team captain acting as this new Slaughter King. Quite a few powerful fallen spirit masters felt that if the enforcement team captain could be the Slaughter King, why couldn't they? However, the enforcement team captain's strength was ultimately that of a titled Douluo. Even though he was injured, he still forcibly suppressed this turmoil and killed quite a few fallen spirit masters. Ever since then, he changed the rules of Slaughter City. Originally, if someone did not want to participate in the Slaughter Soul Arena, they needed to turn over a fixed amount of human blood every month. For those fallen spirit masters who lacked confidence in their own strength, although this could also be considered a slow death, they could barely scrape by and survive. But after the enforcement team captain came to power, the blood required to be turned over monthly for those who did not want to participate in the Slaughter Soul Arena was doubled. Those fallen spirit masters who dared not participate in the Slaughter Soul Arena instantly transitioned from a slow death to either acute death or semi-acute death. With the monthly loss of blood doubled, the time they could hold on was reduced by more than just half. Those fallen spirit masters in the outer city who originally dared not participate were also forced to partake in the Slaughter Soul Arena. Those fallen spirit masters with the lowest strength were also quickly hunted down by slightly stronger fallen spirit masters, using their blood in exchange for the right to avoid battle. The living environment of Slaughter City was already harsh to begin with, and with the enforcement team captain pulling this stunt, it became even more like hell. And the bad days for these fallen spirit masters did not stop there. After Tang Chen left, the nine-headed bloody crimson bat king that had been expelled from his body made a comeback. However, it did not choose to parasite a new Slaughter King, but instead completely let loose. The nine-headed bloody crimson bat king also had a fierce battle with the enforcement team captain, but neither could do anything to the other. In the end, both sides tacitly chose to pretend that the other did not exist. The enforcement team captain continued running their Slaughter Soul Arena, while the nine-headed bloody crimson bat king treated the fallen spirit masters as rations, snatching away a few from time to time. Those still living fallen spirit masters in Slaughter City all wished they had never entered Slaughter City in the first place. At every moment, they could feel death closing in. Since there was a possibility of being hunted down by Spirit Hull in the outside world, and Slaughter City was also a certain death ending, why bother coming to Slaughter City to seek death? Like the fallen spirit master in the tunnel and the one caught by Su Chen, they all knew their days were numbered. They ran here either waiting to see if newcomers would arrive so they could seize blood and barely survive for a bit longer. Of course, there were also those holding more unrealistic thoughts, hoping to find a way out from the passage. Lord, this villain only knows this much, you. Before he finished his sentence, that emaciated fallen spirit master merged into one with the ground. Those fallen spirit masters who entered Slaughter City were wicked individuals whose sins could not be washed clean even by 1,000 cuts 10 times over, so Su Chen killed them without the slightest hesitation. Let's go meet this new Slaughter King. Su Chen had heard the god of destruction mention this. The enforcement team captain was just a consumable selected by the god of destruction, except that this consumable was quite hard to kill. Tang Xiao and Tang Chen killed him twice, yet he still didn't die completely. Before they even saw that consumable, a bloody figure rapidly approached from the sky. At the same time, an even more intense smell of blood struck them. Chapter 225, Asura God, whose dignity is completely swept away, must pay attention to the rhythm of his spear technique. Sect Master. Snake Lance Douluo instinctively blocked in front of Su Chen, the purple cyan snake lance already in his hand, just waiting to thrust fiercely out. Wait, I will do it myself, and stretch my limbs along the way. Yes. Snake Lance Douluo did not hesitate, nor did he worry that Su Chen would face any life-threatening danger. Snake Lance Douluo was the person who had sparred with Su Chen the most times, and he understood Su Chen's strength the best. Even if he attacked with all his might, he could not defeat the sect master, and Snake Lance Douluo did not even know whether Su Chen had used his full strength. Before the nine-headed bloody crimson bat king even arrived, an invisible fluctuation descended. This fluctuation was actually the shrill screech of the nine-headed bloody crimson bat king, but it exceeded the hearing range of human ears. When the screeching fluctuation descended, a pure light curtain arrived and completely blocked it. Su Chen held a shield in one hand and a spear in the other, using twin spirits together. 9 spirit rings surrounded the killing spear, while no spirit rings coiled around the life-protecting shield. However, on the side of the life-protecting shield facing the enemy, there were 9 circular patterns. This was not the first time Snake Lance Douluo had seen Su Chen's 2 spirits, but he was still filled with deep emotion. He had previously been an elder of Spirit Hall and had interacted with Bibi Dong, who was also a twin spirits holder. However, both of Bibi Dong's spirits were spiders, belonging to the beast spirit category. They could only be switched for use and could not be used simultaneously. The number of twin spirits holders was too small, and Snake Lance Douluo did not know if being able to use twin spirits simultaneously was something only Su Chen could achieve, or if any twin tool spirit holders could do it as well. After the life-protecting shield appeared, the nine-headed bloody crimson bat king let out another shrill screech. This time, however, its screech could be heard by normal people, and it targeted not just Su Chen alone, but spread out in all directions. The screech of the nine-headed bloody crimson bat king this time was not for attacking, but out of surprise and fear. Su Chen's life-protecting shield made it feel a fatal threat. The many fallen spirit masters in Slaughter City covered their heads and screamed endlessly one after another. Even though the nine-headed bloody crimson bat king was not actively attacking, the soul-eroding power carried within its screech was already more than most spirit masters could bear. Su Chen, let's make a deal. Slaughter City is my legacy ground after all, and I can also help you transform this big bat into the 4th spirit ring of the Asura Demon Sword. Why don't you just use the Asura Demon Sword? The voice of the Asura god sounded. He was a third party who rudely barged in, and in front of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness, he basically had no say. Yet he had handed his god position legacy over to Su Chen, so he still hoped that Su Chen could pay a little more attention to the Asura Demon Sword. He was a god king after all, and his Asura Demon Sword possessed unparalleled offense, making it worthy of being valued. Furthermore, Su Chen had come to Slaughter City to collect slaughter intent while conveniently adding a spirit ring to the Asura Demon Sword. As a result, he used the powers of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness to fight, which inevitably gave the Asura god a feeling of being cuckolded. You still dare to have objections? Just as the voice of the Asura god fell, the voice of the god of evil rang out. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness guarded against the Asura god now more strictly than guarding against thieves. At least one of them constantly monitored whether the Asura god would pull any sneaky tricks, especially sneaky tricks targeting Su Chen. In the eyes of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness, the sins on the Asura god could not be washed clean even if rinsed inside a spatial turbulence. For a guy like this, even if he obediently did nothing at all, he still had to be beaten up once a day. As a result, Su Chen used the shield-poking build combining the killing spear and the life-protecting shield, yet the Asura god still dared to come out and nag endlessly. Did he feel he hadn't received enough beatings? I don't have any objections. Isn't this to add a new spirit ring to the Asura sword? Using the Asura demon sword is more appropriate. The Asura god still wanted to defend himself. He could accept being temporarily weaker than others due to bad luck, but he couldn't stand being permanently held down and beaten by the combined forces of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness. Even if he didn't dare to openly oppose the god of evil and the goddess of kindness, he wanted to have more status here with Su Chen. They were both god kings who had passed on their god positions to Su Chen. Even if he couldn't suppress the god of evil and the goddess of kindness, he should at least strive for an equal footing. Of course, the Asura god didn't dare to directly make this request. However, he could make gradual progress, letting Su Chen get familiar with the Asura demon sword first. What if he grew to like it? If Su Chen liked it himself, you, the god of evil and the goddess of kindness, would have nothing more to say. Through persistence, perhaps Su Chen would favor the Asura god position even more. But what kind of gods were the god of evil and the goddess of kindness? They were thousand-year-old foxes. Did the Asura god really think he could play tricks on them? As soon as the Asura god finished defending himself, the gates of the Asura temple were knocked on. Open the door, the god realm. Committee is here to deliver warmth. The voice of the god of evil rang out. Although he spoke of delivering warmth, the Asura god felt a chill in his heart. Furthermore, without waiting for the Asura god to open the door, the temple gates were kicked open from left and right by 2 feet. Moreover, with this kind of force, the draft in the Asura temple could blow uninterrupted from now on. Evil, kindness, can you give me some face and let me have a bit of dignity in front of my successor? The Asura god swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He wasn't afraid of beatings, anyway, having suffered enough, he was already used to it. But if he let Su Chen use the Asura demon sword and then got beaten up by the god of evil and the goddess of kindness right after, aside from losing all his face, it would be terrible if Su Chen thought he, the Asura god, was very weak. I'll teach you to be dishonest. I'll teach you to care about face. I'll teach you to bewitch Su Chen into using the Asura demon sword. You still want dignity. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness had long known how dishonest the Asura god was. While the Asura god defended himself, the fists of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness never stopped. The Asura god wore an expression of utter despair. Because when the god of evil and the goddess of kindness beat him, they also synchronously transmitted the sound of the beating to Su Chen. As a god king, his dignity was completely swept away in front of his successor. Clenching his teeth and refusing to let out a miserable scream was the Asura god's final stubbornness. In the lower realm, Su Chen was quite speechless. He never expected that there would ever be a time when he would fight while listening to the sound effects of a tag team beating administered by the god of evil and the goddess of kindness to the Asura god. Even if background music was needed, this soundtrack didn't match very well. Methods always outnumber difficulties. Since Su Chen couldn't remind the god of evil and the goddess of kindness to mind the rhythm, he could only make his own attacks match their rhythm. The life-protecting shield in his left hand shone brightly, firmly blocking all attacks from the 9-headed bloody crimson bat king without shaking even a bit. And the killing spear in his right hand thrust out spear strike after spear strike. The defense of the life-protecting shield could block external attacks, but it would not obstruct internal attacks directed outward. The bystander snake lance Douluo showed a puzzled expression. Su Chen was beating down on the 9-headed bloody crimson bat king, and it was completely a state of crushing suppression. Yet Su Chen's spear technique made snake lance Douluo feel completely unfamiliar. This rhythm was a bit strange. At times it was like a violent storm, and at other times it became extremely slow. If the person using the spear wasn't Su Chen, snake lance Douluo would definitely have thought it was some uninitiated beginner poking the spear around randomly. Could the sect master be practicing a new spear technique? As expected of the sect master, with such high talent and such strong strength, he is still working hard. How could he know that in order to match the rhythm of the fists of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness colliding with the Asura god's body, Su Chen forcibly suppressed his instinct in using the spear? The 9-headed bloody crimson bat king let out shrill screeches one after another. In its completely crimson eyes, besides fear, a trace of anger was actually revealed. If you want to kill, kill. If you want to fight, fight. Why torture it? Yet it couldn't escape. While blocking its attacks, the life-protecting shield also cut off all possibilities of its escape, forcing the 9-headed bloody crimson bat king to passively receive Su Chen's spear strike after spear strike. The crucial part was that this rhythm of the spear technique also made the 9-headed bloody crimson bat king extremely uncomfortable. Chapter 226 Asura God, it's because I like lying on the ground myself. The 9-headed bloody crimson bat king fought like a trapped beast, its 9 heads hissing in unison as countless blood arrows surged towards Su Chen like a torrential downpour. Unfortunately, this seemingly majestic ultimate skill of its landed on the life-protecting shield, yet not a single drop penetrated through. Su Chen's life-protecting shield spirit had 9 spirit rings, all derived from divine trials, and it possessed only a single spirit ability named Protection of Kindness. The range of Protection of Kindness could be large or small, adjustable at will, and could also be used as a barrier to trap enemies. However, the larger the maintained range, the more spirit power it consumed, and its defensive capability would also decrease correspondingly. But it was more than enough to trap the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King. No matter how it struggled and resisted, it could neither harm Su Chen nor escape alive. Accompanied by the shrill screeches of the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King, the fallen spirit masters of Slaughter City all felt a sense of impending danger. Even the spirit masters who were fighting fiercely in the Hell Slaughter arena stopped at this moment. After all, when the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King hunted, it didn't care whether you were engaged in a spirit battle or not. There had been times when the battle in the slaughter arena was at its height, and the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King would descend from the sky to casually snatch away a few blood meals. However, the former law enforcement team captain of Slaughter City, who was the current Slaughter King, was indeed alarmed. When the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King first appeared, he also thought it was hunting normally, just with a slightly larger commotion. He hadn't planned to pay attention to it either. Anyway, having fought once before, neither he nor the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King could do anything to the other, only trading injuries for injuries. They were merely blood meals anyway, and he had no intention of treating these people as his subjects. But it had been going on for so long, and the voice of the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King was growing increasingly miserable. It was injured. The new Slaughter King's first reaction was not joy, but worry. He was very certain that ever since the previous Slaughter King left, besides himself, there was no second spirit master in Slaughter City capable of contending with the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King. Now, the person capable of injuring the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King must have returned from the outside world. Could it be that the previous Slaughter King had returned? The new Slaughter King's heart skipped a beat. He had indeed survived from Tang Chen's hands last time, but he had also suffered not insignificant damage. More importantly, ever since then, his blood god divine trials had completely gone silent. It seemed he had been abandoned by Lord Blood God. The reason he spared no effort to exhaustively collect blood was precisely to recover from his injuries. Hesitating for a moment, the new Slaughter King still decided to go take a look. Slaughter City was only so big, how long could he hide? If it really was the previous Slaughter King who had returned, he would rather join forces with the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King to drive him away once more. After unleashing a wave of burst strength, the aura of the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King grew increasingly weak. Meanwhile, Su Chen heard that the beating and kicking of Asura god by the god of evil and the goddess of kindness was also nearing its end. This one-sided, hearty battle should also come to a close. When the final friendly face-smashing punch from the god of evil in the god realm landed on Asura god, Su Chen thrust the killing spear forward, blooming 9 spear flowers in a single strike to pierce through all 9 heads of the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King simultaneously. The new Slaughter King, who had just quietly sneaked over, raised his head and witnessed this exact scene. The 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King died just like that. Extreme shock gripped the new Slaughter King's heart. He had fought the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King and knew its strength was not below his own. For the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King to be slain so easily, if it were him, his fate would definitely be no better. Moreover, now that he had lost the Blood God legacy, even faking his death to escape would be very difficult to achieve. Sect Master Snake Lance Douluo had been keeping watch for Su Chen all along. The new Slaughter King thought he was hiding very well, but the moment he approached, Snake Lance Douluo had already sensed it. Handle this one yourself. Su Chen, who had warmed up his limbs using the 9-headed bloody Crimson Bat King, also glanced toward the location of the new Slaughter King. Yes, it was bad. The new Slaughter King secretly thought it was bad. These two uninvited guests were not only formidable in strength, but their perception was also this sharp. He immediately intended to retreat, but several sharp streaks of protective aura flashed past, forcing him to halt on the spot. Su Chen did not pay too much mind to the battle on Snake Lance Douluo's side. With Snake Lance Douluo's current strength, There were very few spirit masters or spirit beasts across the entire Douluo continent capable of contending with him, and this new Slaughter King was clearly not among them. Su Chen kept watching the corpse of the nine-headed bloody Crimson Bat King, but after waiting for a while, no spirit ring emerged. Senior Asura God, you said this nine-headed bloody Crimson Bat King could become a spirit ring for my Asura demon sword spirit, look. Ahem, this seat knows, cough cough tilde this bat is different from ordinary spirit beasts, I will help you. Condense the spirit ring. God Realm. Although the god of evil had stopped his hands, he still pinned Asura God to the ground. Asura God urged, quickly let go, I have serious business to attend to. This is also for the success of our next divine force fusion, don't waste time. The god of evil remained completely unmoved. You are not even willing to call me big brother. Asura God. The five god kings jointly governed the god realm, although their authorities differed and their strengths were not completely identical, they had never officially divided themselves into higher or lower ranks. If he were to call the god of evil, big brother, right now, it would basically mean bowing his head to him and the goddess of kindness. But for the god of evil to raise such a question at this time, it was obvious he wanted to win this pride. Asura God had meddled in the middle, entangling the divine forces and god positions of the three of them. If Su Chen succeeded next time, their divine forces would completely fuse into one. Although the god of evil and the goddess of kindness found it extremely vexing, they were also somewhat helpless. After all, it was a debt of bad karma. Since things had come to this, they might as well settle who was above and who was below. Putting aside who was the eldest and who was the second for now, they would sort out the youngest first. Time seemed to have frozen. Finally, a mosquito-like voice of, Big Brother, came from beneath where the god of evil was suppressing him. The god of evil's strength immediately lessened by a few fractions. The goddess of kindness let out a cough. What about me? Sek. Before Asura God could shout the word following, Sek, he received a slap on the head. Second, what second? I am also of the senior generation. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness were frequently inseparable yet occasionally argued endlessly. The goddess of kindness was certainly not willing to rank behind the god of evil. I know, sister-in-law. The air froze for a fraction of a second. The goddess of kindness's palm descended once more. Do you think you're funny? Sister-in-law, my foot. Call me eldest sister. The relationship between the god of evil and the goddess of kindness was closer than the vast majority of married couples, yet they simply hadn't bound themselves as husband and wife like destruction and life. How was this not a form of wisdom? Yes, eldest sister. Asura God had also cast all caution to the wind. When he shouted the first sentence, his voice was still very small, but now he was already a very qualified little brother. Asura God's eye corners could not help but grow somewhat moist. In order to forcibly squeeze onto this free ride, he had lost far, far too much. Be a good boy, get up. Look at you, such a big god king, yet you're lying on the ground like a little child. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness hoisted Asura God up from left and right. Asura God. Fine, it's just that I like lying on the ground myself, alright. Chapter 227, Tang San's hanging heart completely died. Ahem, hold your breath and concentrate, begin absorbing the spirit ring. Even though the commotion of the beating was broadcast directly into Su Chen's ears, Asura God still reluctantly maintained surface-level dignity. The nine-headed bloody Crimson Bat King that fell before Su Chen turned into a pool of blood, which then condensed into a blood-colored spirit ring. By this time, Su Chen had already put away the killing spear and life-protecting shield. Absorbing the spirit ring still had to be left to the rightful owner, the Asura demon sword. While Su Chen was absorbing the spirit ring, the killing qi of Slaughter City, hidden for who knows how many years, gushed out all at once. Those remaining fallen spirit masters in Slaughter City all had red eyes, acting like madmen and demons. Even though these fallen spirit masters were ruthless killers and had been in the extreme environment of Slaughter City for a long time, they could not withstand such a massive amount of killing qi. Except for a few fallen spirit masters whose strength had reached the spirit Douluo realm who could barely maintain a shred of rationality, the others went completely mad, launching frantic battles against other fallen spirit masters without any threats needed. The killing qi swept past, forming a huge vortex in Slaughter City. And Su Chen was right at the center of this vortex. I must make a quick decision. Snake Lance Douluo originally wanted to see how many tricks this Slaughter King had up his sleeve, but seeing the killing chi converge and worrying that his battle would affect Su Chen, he directly used his full strength. Unleashing the purple cyan snake lance, the new Slaughter King felt as though he was surrounded and devoured by hundreds and thousands of purple cyan giant snakes. No, I cannot die here. He had survived from the hands of the previous Slaughter King and managed to endure until he became the new Slaughter King. How could he be willing to just die like this? Moreover, he had even greater desires. He felt that the disappearance of the Blood God's divine trial was because he was injured. As long as he could collect enough blood, Lord Blood God would definitely bless him once again. What a pity, the one who bestowed him the Blood God divine trial was not Lord Blood God, but Lei, Lord God of Destruction. And at this moment, the God of Destruction had already forgotten that there was such a tool person. While Slaughter City was undergoing earth-shaking changes, Douluo continent was also bustling with activity. Under Hu Chengxing's all-out promotion, the nobles who had been majestic and tyrannical for tens of thousands of years either ate knives or took beatings with sticks, all having a bright future. However, none of this affected Shrek Academy. In such a run-down village, let alone nobles, there weren't even a few families with slightly solid financial backgrounds. But today, Tang San suddenly felt his heart skip a beat and palpitate. Could another disaster be coming? Perhaps having encountered bad luck too many times, Tang San had developed an intuition. Could something have gone wrong with teacher? Tang San asking Yu Shaogang to help divert Spirit Hall's attention to the Heaven Human sect didn't mean he wasn't guarding against Spirit Hall at all. Tang Hao hadn't been at Shrek Academy these past few days, but had instead gone to the compulsory route from Spirit City to Shrek Academy. Once anyone from Spirit Hall raided, Tang Hao would be able to give an early warning. Tang San wasn't doubting Yu Shaogang and their master-disciple relationship, but was taking cautious precautions. Even if Yu Shaogang didn't want to actively betray him, there were other possibilities of exposure. However, Tang San felt this possibility was very low. Given Bibi Dong's feelings for Yu Shaogang, let alone this kind of 9 truths 1 lie perfect excuse just to divert her attention. Even if Yu Shaogang told a lie full of loopholes, Bibi Dong would still believe it. Tang San thought things through very well. But unfortunately, the person Yu Shaogang met was not Bibi Dong, but Qian Runshui. This time, neither the God of Destruction nor Asura God even intervened. Tang San exposed his own location to Spirit Hall all by himself. Suddenly, Tang San looked into the distance. A dark figure was rapidly approaching. Tang San activated the purple demon eye to look, and wasn't that his pitiful old father? Tang San's heart sank. Dad returning at this time, and in such a hurry, must mean a big event has happened. This shouldn't be. Could Bibi Dong be the reborn person? But her expression didn't look like it, or could it be that she's no longer interested in teacher? Bibi Dong shouldn't fall out of love and shift her affection so easily. Tang San couldn't figure it out. He didn't understand how his plan, which was so seamless, could have a loophole. Damn heavens, could rebirth really be accompanied by a curse? Why was his luck so bad after this rebirth? Whatever he did failed, bad luck was literally covering his head. Little San, hurry, pack your things and leave quickly, Spirit Hall is raiding. Tang Hao hadn't even arrived yet when his voice reached them first. Tang San's hanging heart completely died. It really was Spirit Hall. Is Bibi Dong fucking crazy? Xiao Wu, Da Ming, and Ming's spirit rings weren't even absorbed by me. Why aren't you looking for the mastermind behind the scenes instead of staring at us all the time? Fortunately, Tang San was used to running away, so he carried his things with him and didn't need to pack anything. He notified Flender, asking him to gather Dai Mubai and the others. Flender pulled a long, gloomy face. He just knew it. Whenever this bunch of people surnamed Tang came, nothing good ever happened. Sure enough, not long after, his hard-earned peaceful days were broken. Dean, quickly bring Mubai, Ma Hongjun, and the others too. Gather, we need to leave this place quickly. Flender desperately wanted to curse Tang San out loud. Who is, we, with you? You are you, and Shrek is Shrek. As long as you guys don't come, Shrek will always be safe and sound. But unfortunately, Flender didn't dare. Do we really have to leave? Shrek has managed to develop to this state with such difficulty. If we leave this time. Flender really didn't want to abandon this bit of remaining family property. The key was that he really hadn't done anything, he just didn't dare to drive away these uninvited guests like Tang-san. Dean, the people of Spirit Hall are rabid and frantic. Do you really expect them to suddenly grow a good heart and let you guys go? It wasn't that Tang-san hadn't thought about how returning to Shrek Academy would implicate these old fellows. But then again, they were all old fellows, in his past life, he had helped them a lot. Could Dai Mubai and the others have become gods without relying on him, who obtained the god position first? Moreover, if it weren't for the immortal herb he gave them, given Dai Mubai and the others' aptitude, even if the god position was placed right in front of them, the chance of becoming a god wouldn't be high. The cause of the past life, the fruit of this life. Since they enjoyed so many benefits from him in the past life, in this life they should share weal and woe with him. Therefore, even if Ma Hongjun and the others didn't get any benefits from Tang-san in this life, Tang-san still had to drag them along. When wealthy and honored, do not forget each other, when fallen into adversity, bear it together. Flender endured and endured. Spirit Hall is rabid and frantic. How could Spirit Hall ever be as frantic as you guys? Especially last time when Bibi Dong let Shrek go, although it was for Yu Xiaoging's face, after all, she didn't exterminate them completely. Compared to Spirit Hall, it was actually Tang-san and Tang Hao, these sticky gum-like things that couldn't be shaken off, that annoyed Flender even more. But Flender didn't dare to gamble. Last time Spirit Hall let them go, but this time they mixed together with Tang-san and this bunch of Spirit Hall enemies. Flender felt that if he were a member of Spirit Hall, he wouldn't easily let Shrek go either. Sigh. What else could he do? Go run for his life. Chapter 228, Tang-san deploys his amazing wisdom again, Tang Xiao. Dad, who are the people coming from Spirit Hall? Having Flender lead the others to pack their things, Tang-san then asked Tang Hao. If the ones coming were elders of Spirit Hall, even though Tang Hao was severely crippled now and had already fallen from the titled Douluo realm, he shouldn't have panicked to this extent. Could it be that Bibi Dong has come personally? Tang-san had dared to let Yu Xiaoging go to Spirit Hall because he felt that Bibi Dong was injured, and no matter what, she wouldn't personally come to hunt them down. In his past life, Tang-san was the Asura god, and his understanding of Asura divine power and the Asura demon sword was second only to the current Asura god. The trauma inflicted upon Bibi Dong by the Asura demon sword was hindered by Asura divine power. It wouldn't be so easy for Bibi Dong to recover. Could it be that Bibi Dong and Qian Runshui had reconciled, and the ones coming were people from the consecration hall? Tang-san didn't suspect Qian Dalu. In his past life, he had indeed heard about how formidable and extraordinary Qian Dalu was. But before the final decisive battle, Qian Dalu had already died. Moreover, judging from Qian Dalu's past behavior, he wouldn't easily leave Spirit City. Tang-san felt that even if Bibi Dong attacked while injured, Qian Dalu wouldn't lead the hunting party. It's not Bibi Dong. It's a woman with an angel martial soul leading the team, and she also brought 6 high priests whose spirit power is above level 95. With our current strength, we definitely cannot withstand them. Tang Hao's breathing was somewhat hurried. He had only observed Qian Runshui and the others from afar and had not fought with them. But when he came back, he had practically risked everything, rushing back at the fastest possible speed. If it were during his prime, how could he have been in such a wretched state? He might have even ambushed Spirit Hall midway and used the great Sumeru hammer to let the people of Spirit Hall know his might. But now, he was half crippled himself and still had to take care of Tang-san. Going head to head with Spirit Hall was equivalent to courting death. Angel martial soul. Qian Runshui. Hearing Tang Hao's description, the first person Tang-san thought of was Qian Runshui. Dad, did you sense how powerful that spirit master with the angel martial soul is? Tang Hao furrowed his brows and said, I can only sense that she is a titled Douluo. Exactly what level her spirit power is at, I cannot perceive. A titled Douluo. Qian Runshui became a titled Douluo this fast. Tang San was both worried and puzzled. After escaping from the Star-Do Great Forest, Tang San had cleared the doubts he once had about his suspected targets and regarded Su Chen as the true mastermind behind the scenes. But now Qian Runshui had become a titled Douluo ahead of time and had personally come to hunt them down. This once again left Tang San somewhat confused. Having experienced rebirth, everything should have gone smoothly, so why were there accidents everywhere? Sigh, Dad, we have to flee again. In the end, Tang San could only let out a long sigh. Although Flender was full of reluctance, his hands and feet were quite nimble. Before long, the entire original crew of Shrek gathered together. From director Flender to teacher Zhao Wuji, and down to students like Oscar and Ma Hongjun, every single one of them had a gloomy, long face. If Tang San didn't have Tang Hao and Tang Xiao behind him, they would definitely let Tang San know how heavy their fists were. This scumbag truly wasn't acting like a human being. If you want to offend Spirit Hall, go offend them yourselves, why drag them into this? The one who first broke this atmosphere was Luer Long. However, she certainly wasn't planning to put in a good word for Tang San. Previously, out of regard for Yu Xiaoging's face, Luer Long had treated Tang San quite well. But now, nobody knew what Tang San and Yu Xiaoging had talked about. Xiaoging was currently missing, and Spirit Hall was about to attack their doorstep. How could Luer Long not be anxious? Little San, where on earth has Xiaoging gone? Worried that Luer Long would overthink if she knew he was going to Spirit Hall, Yu Xiaoging had found another excuse before leaving and hadn't told Luer Long the truth. Teacher Erlong, teacher has important matters to attend to. Rest assured, he will definitely be fine. Tang San felt that even if Yu Xiaoging was trapped in Spirit Hall, his life wouldn't be in danger. For Spirit Hall to know so quickly that he was in Shrek, they must have learned it from Yu Xiaoging's mouth. Tang San really didn't want to suspect that Yu Xiaoging had betrayed him, but since Spirit Hall came so quickly, it could only mean that Yu Xiaoging had exposed their whereabouts. As to whether it was spoken under inducement, spoken under interrogation, or even whether Yu Xiaoging spoke of his own accord, Tang San wasn't certain. Bullsh. Luer Long didn't manage to say the word, shit, but upon seeing Tang Hao's terrifying gaze, she swallowed it back down. Little San, tell me the truth, did Xiaoging go to Spirit Hall? Luer Long was terribly foolish in front of Yu Xiaoging, but now that Yu Xiaoging was missing, her brain was finally able to function a little bit. Teacher Erlong, now is truly not the time to discuss these matters. Let's leave this place first. After we are safe, I will tell you everything from beginning to end. Having said that, Tang San looked around and said to Tang Hao, Dad, where is Big Uncle? Even people like Ma Hongjun had finished packing, yet Tang Xiao still hadn't appeared. Big brother Tang Hao had just spoken when he saw Tang Xiao carrying Tang Chen over. Under Tang Xiao's care during these past days, Tang Chen not only hadn't completely kicked the bucket, but instead went from looking like a dried corpse to having a bit more flesh and blood. However, Tang Chen was still completely unconscious, acting entirely like the Walking Dead. Big brother, hurry up, it's time for us to leave. Both Tang Hao and Tang San felt somewhat awkward. These days, the one who constantly took care of Tang Chen was Tang Xiao. If Tang Xiao hadn't carried Tang Chen out, Tang San would have almost forgotten that he still had a great-grandfather. Without saying a word, Tang Xiao handed Tang Chen over to Tang Hao. Hao, from now on, grandfather will be left in your care. Tang San secretly thought to himself that something was amiss. Tang Xiao's words sounded somewhat like he was entrusting orphans before his death. Big Uncle, the people from Spirit Hall will arrive here very soon. Shall we leave first? Tang Xiao gave Tang San an indifferent glance. Did you deploy your amazing wisdom again and plot something? After arriving at Shrek, Tang Xiao had always kept a low profile. Apart from taking care of Tang Chen, he spent his time fully recovering from his injuries. Although he didn't know what matter Tang San had asked Yu Xiaoging to do, upon seeing this situation, he immediately guessed that Tang San had done something superfluous. Ever since Tang San and Tang Hao returned to the Clear Sky sect, Tang San had been extremely opinionated, repeatedly making suggestions that seemed very beneficial to the Clear Sky sect. But in the end, every single one of those suggestions made their situation worse and worse. At first, Tang Xiao even felt that Tang Hao had fathered a good son who would surely make the Clear Sky sect great again. But now, he simply felt that Tang San was fucking disaster incarnate. Clearly shrouded in bad luck, yet he loved to act like he knew everything while pointing fingers at the country and concocting seemingly decent plans. With luck as terrible as yours, couldn't you just honestly keep a low profile? Anyway, Tang Xiao was truly exhausted. He didn't want to flee everywhere with Tang San and Tang Hao anymore. Big brother. Tang Hao's voice was somewhat choked with sobs. He too heard Tang Xiao's intention to die. In fact, ever since the Clear Sky sect was nearly destroyed, Tang Hao had known that this day would come sooner or later. With the Clear Sky sect destroyed, Tang Xiao, as the sect master, blamed all the responsibilities on himself, suffering from inner torment every single moment. All right, you guys go. Tang Xiao waved his hand. I can at least buy some time for you so that you can leave smoothly. Hao, let me give you one final piece of advice: stop doing superfluous and self-troubling plotting. Haven't you suffered enough losses? Finally, Tang Xiao glanced at Tang Chen whom Tang Hao was holding. As for grandfather, if you two have even a shred of conscience, take good care of him. Grandfather loved you the most. Chapter 229, You do not deserve to use the angel martial soul. Qian Runshui has an epiphany. Sect Master, are we returning to the sect now? At the entrance of Slaughter City, Su Chen and Snake Lance Douluo returned the way they came. Originally, if one wanted to leave Slaughter City, they could only walk the Hell Road. However, who was Su Chen? As the legitimate legacy holder of the Asura god, Slaughter City was practically his own property. How his own front door opened and closed was entirely up to him, wasn't it? Su Chen did not completely destroy Slaughter City. No matter how cruel or inhumane the rules of Slaughter City were, they only inflicted harm among the fallen spirit masters themselves. Without Slaughter City, those fallen spirit masters would have nowhere to go and would only stir up even more slaughter on the Douluo continent. On the contrary, Su Chen was even prepared to rebuild this entrance. Sword Douluo had exterminated everyone and set a fire as well. Even if any fallen spirit master ran here, it would be very difficult to find the entrance to Slaughter City. Let's go. Su Chen leapt into the air. He no longer needed a spirit bone, nor did he need a spirit tool. His own flight speed was already top tier. Tang San and Tang Hao failed to persuade Tang Xiao. In the end, they could only leave Tang Xiao behind and embark on a journey of escape once again with the Shrek party. Tang Xiao guarded Shrek Academy alone, waiting for the people from Spirit Hall to arrive. How he wished that what he was guarding was the former Clear Sky sect. If he had died after the great battle between the Clear Sky sect and Spirit Hall back then, he wouldn't have become a historical sinner of the Clear Sky sect. The title of the last sect master of the Clear Sky sect really did not sound good. Before long, Tang Xiao, who had been closing his eyes and reminiscing about the past of the Clear Sky sect, opened his eyes. They're here. The Clear Sky hammer materialized in Tang Xiao's hand, with 9 shining spirit rings revolving around it. During this period of time, Tang Xiao had finally managed to recover his exploded 9th spirit ring, which also prompted him to make the decision to stay behind. Having recovered the power of a titled Douluo, he could finally go all out and fight a fierce battle. As Shoutian Douluo, even though he hadn't inherited the sacred title of Clear Sky, he was still going to fight a roaring, earth-shaking battle. Is he Tang Hao? Qian Runshui wanted to avenge her father's death, but she had never seen Tang Hao before. Tang Xiao and Tang Hao were biological brothers, and their spirits were both the Clear Sky hammer, so it was completely normal that she couldn't tell them apart. Before the consecrated elders could answer, Tang Xiao roared out, I am Tang Xiao, Shoutian Douluo, sect master of the Clear Sky sect. Most of Tang Xiao's life had been lived under the shadow of Tang Hao. Grandfather Tang Chen loved Tang Hao the most. He didn't pass down the great Sumeru hammer and ring explosion to him, nor to their father, but passed them exclusively to Tang Hao. His only younger sister also felt closer to her second older brother Tang Hao rather than him. Needless to say about their father, before he was angered to death by the war with Spirit Hall triggered by Tang Hao, he had always regarded Tang Hao as his pride. Not to mention the family members' partiality toward Tang Hao within the sect. Even when venturing out into the world, his affinity with women wasn't as good as Tang Hao's. He and Tang Hao encountered Yin together, yet Yin chose Tang Hao without the slightest hesitation. Reviewing his life, Tang Xiao discovered that although he became the sect master of the Clear Sky sect, he was the most aggrieved sect master of all. Whenever he was in front of Tang Hao, he basically went from one failure to another. But other than his cultivation speed being a little slower than Tang Hao's, in what way was he inferior to Tang Hao? If Yin had chosen him, he would definitely not have brought Yin to appear ostentatiously in front of the titled Douluo of Spirit Hall. Yin would not have died, Spirit Hall and the Clear Sky sect would not have gone to war, the Clear Sky sect would not have closed its doors and sealed the mountains, and even fewer would only have a few people left alive. But unfortunately, from the very beginning, he was deemed inferior to Tang Hao. Despite subsequent events, after their grandfather returned, he still valued Tang Hao the most, even though Tang Hao was missing an arm. Now he had already prepared himself to die, yet the leading woman from Spirit Hall actually mistook him for Tang Hao. If he were to die in such an unclear manner, Tang Xiao felt that he wouldn't even be able to close his eyes in death. Tang Xiao had no intention of probing or maneuvering at all. Right from the start, all 9 spirit rings exploded together. The great Sumeru hammer technique and the power of ring explosion that he had yearned for day and night were finally mastered by him after the destruction of the Clear Sky sect. Tang Xiao laughed self-deprecatingly. This was his last ring explosion. Even if Spirit Hall didn't kill him, his spirit rings could never be recovered completely. He just wanted to take a few more titled Douluo from Spirit Hall down with him before he died. Kill. Where is Tang Hao? Who the hell are you? Tang Xiao had brewed his aura for a long time, preparing to face death heroically. But for Qian Runshui, what kind of thing was Shoutian Douluo? Was he a knockoff of Clear Sky Douluo? She only wanted to kill Tang Hao to take revenge. In her anger, Qian Runshui had her angel martial soul possess her, preparing to charge and kill head-on with Tang Xiao. But at this very moment, she suddenly recalled Su Chen's evaluation of her grandfather. That's not right, I have the angel martial soul, and flight and speed are my advantages. If I collide head-on with Tang Xiao, wouldn't that make me as stubbornly upright as grandfather? Therefore, Qian Runshui, who was flying low toward Tang Xiao, pulled off a sudden vertical ascent at the critical moment of their head-on encounter, soaring straight into the clouds. Meanwhile, Tang Xiao's fully charged hammer directly landed on the ground. With a booming crash, the earth shook violently. Flapping her wings, Qian Runshui looked down and saw a huge pit appear on the ground. Good thing I dodged. Why would I ever think of colliding head-on with a titled Douluo from the Clear Sky sect? Seeing the power of Tang Xiao's full-strength hammer strike, Qian Runshui felt that if she had blocked it head-on, she would most likely have been injured. But after adjusting her strategy, she didn't even dirty her clothes while wasting Tang Xiao's fully charged strike. This is the combat style our angel martial soul should use. Qian Runshui had an epiphany. Always charging head-on when encountering enemies like grandfather did could indeed be called being a gentleman, but it was also too foolish. Not using the advantages she clearly possessed, wasn't that being a fool? Unlike Qian Runshui, who was happy about comprehending the correct combat style, Tang Xiao was somewhat dumbfounded. Who was he? Where was he? What was he doing? Although this was Tang Xiao's first time fighting Qian Runshui, he had studied the combat styles of other members of the Qian family. Grandfather Tang Chen and Qian Douluo were respectively the king of the earth and the king of the skies. Yet most of their battles took place on the ground, and even when flying, Qian Douluo would confront Tang Chen head-on. Needless to say about Qian Xunji, Tang Hao had accepted Yin's sacrifice and was in a state of explosive strength. In fact, Qian Xunji only needed to kite him for a wave, dragging out Tang Hao's berserk duration, and he would have had plenty of time and methods to deal with Tang Hao. But Qian Xunji refused to do so. He insisted on fighting him head-on while Tang Hao was in his berserk state, and even refused to let Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo shoulder the main damage. At the moment when Qian Runshui rushed over consumed by rage, Tang Xiao also felt that history was about to repeat itself. Grandfather had defeated Qian Douluo, Ahao had severely injured Qian Xunji, and he would die fighting to take away a holder of the angel martial soul. At the very beginning, the script had indeed gone according to his expectations. Qian Runshui was indeed just as stubborn and upright as Qian Douluo and Qian Xunji. Clearly bringing her subordinates along, yet she stubbornly rushed over all by herself. Therefore, Tang Xiao also concentrated most of the power that erupted after the ring explosion into his first hammer strike, striving to settle the universe with a single hammer and at least severely injure Qian Runshui. Yet at the critical moment, someone from the old Qian family, who had consistently disliked dodging, actually dodged. Tang Xiao was so angry that he wanted to spit blood. You even deserve to have the angel martial soul. Your bloodline isn't pure at all. Your Majesty, the Supreme Pontiff. The 4 consecrated elders brought by Qian Runshui surrounded them, trapping Tang Xiao in the middle. They were also frightened out of their wits. Qian Runshui had rushed out too suddenly, leaving them completely unprepared, and they still had lingering fears. Chapter 230, Tang Xiao's Frustrating Death. The Tao of Cowering is truly useful. Your Majesty the Supreme Pontiff, are you all right? Just leave this person to us, why bother troubling your Majesty to act personally? The elders were truly frightened. It was true that Qian Runshui had activated the angel god legacy, and her realm had also reached that of a titled Douluo. However, they were not very clear about Qian Runshui's specific strength or her combat skills. Fortunately, Qian Runshui did not completely inherit her father's lingering style, and unexpectedly did not stubbornly rush forward at the critical moment. I am fine, mere Tang Xiao cannot hurt me. Looking down from above, Qian Runshui had a trace of a smile at the corner of her eyes. The elders completely relaxed and said to Qian Runshui, Your Majesty the Supreme Pontiff can just watch the battle. Leave this clear sky sect remnant to us subordinates to deal with. Qian Runshui was just about to nod when a new idea suddenly floated into her mind. No need, all of you step back and do not engage in battle with him. Thinking that Qian Runshui still wanted to single combat Tang Xiao, the elders quickly advised. Your Majesty the Supreme Pontiff, with your precious body, why take the risk? Before they could finish speaking, Qian Runshui interrupted. Who said I am going to fight him? Doesn't their clear sky sect have that ring explosion method? The duration it can maintain is very short. You do not need to fight him. Once the amplification time of his ring explosion passes, a single finger can poke him to death. Hearing this, it seemed as if even the wind became quiet. The elders were dumbfounded. They had not expected Qian Runshui to be this kind of person. The lingering style of the old Qian family, never dodging when they could face things head-on, had actually been broken right here with her. It would be one thing not to fight alone, but she actually directly avoided battle, wanting to literally wear the people of the clear sky sect to death. Suddenly, a roar interrupted the dead-like silent air. You naturally evil brat of Spirit Hall, how can you be so despicable, shameless, and base? You are simply unworthy of being a titled Douluo. Tang Xiao was so angry he jumped up and down. Not only had his charged blow been dodged, but this black-hearted new Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall actually wanted to cruelly drag him to death, refusing to even satisfy his wish to fight to his heart's content. Tang Xiao leapt up and flew toward Qian Runshui. Hey! This time, Qian Runshui no longer had any psychological burden. She dodged whenever she should and would never stupidly wait for Tang Xiao's attack to arrive. However, just as Qian Runshui dodged a little distance away, she discovered that Tang Xiao, who had leapt high into the air, did not chase after her, but instead used the momentum to smash toward Qianjin Douluo. It turns out the barbarians of the Clear Sky sect are not honest either. Tang Xiao clearly wanted to make a feint to the east and attack in the west. He could not catch up to Qian Runshui's speed, so he would settle for the next best thing. Taking away 1 or 2 elders of Spirit Hall would also be good. However, how could Qian Runshui, whose intelligence had already been unlocked, let him get his wish? Dodge. While telling the elders to dodge, Qian Runshui prepared to execute Angel Assault, imitating Tang Xiao to also give him a high-altitude condescending blow. However, she still played it safe and only cast the Angel's Roar spirit ability, attacking Tang Xiao from a distance. The roar arrived in a flash. Before Tang Xiao could approach Qianjin Douluo, it caused an impact on Tang Xiao's spiritual sea. Although Tang Xiao in his explosive state instantly shook off the influence of Angel's Roar, this little bit of time was already enough for Qianjin Douluo to dodge. The four elders joined together and retreated toward the distance. They prepared to follow Qian Runshui's method. Although it was very unseemly, it was indeed very safe. With the four of them together, they completely gave Tang Xiao no chance to divide and conquer them. If Tang Xiao intended to force an attack, let alone blowing his rings, even if he blew up his ancestral graves, it would be impossible to take on four people head-on. Since they could easily drag Tang Xiao to death, why fight him? Thinking of the past encounter of Supreme Pontiff Qian Xunji, as well as the injuries of Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo, the elders had only one thought in their hearts. Your Majesty, the Supreme Pontiff has brilliant insight. Watching the four elders calmly retreat while Qian Runshui was not lured down, Tang Xiao's face was filled with grief and indignation. When he chose to attack Qianjin Douluo just now, besides making a feint to the east and attacking in the west, he indeed also had the intention of attracting Qian Runshui down. Therefore, it looked like he smashed toward Qianjin Douluo with all his might, but in reality, he always held back his strength, waiting for Qian Runshui to chase him down so he could turn around with a hammer and make Qian Runshui suffer a big loss. Yet Qian Runshui's caution simply exceeded his imagination. Right now, the four elders of Spirit Hall huddled together and retreated in an orderly manner. Qian Runshui was high above, showing not the slightest intention of fighting him head-on. Tang Xiao had the surging power after the ring explosion in vain, yet could not find anyone to vent his violence upon. Does your Spirit Hall still want any face? Tang Xiao launched a futile attack with grief and indignation. There was no other way. The time his burst could maintain was running out. Even knowing there was hardly any chance, he could only try his best to anticipate that slim hope. When he chased Qian Runshui, a flick of her wings left him far behind. When he chased the elders of Spirit Hall, the four of them only defended and did not attack, acting like a thick turtle shell where he had no place to sink his teeth. Not to mention that Qian Runshui would also provide long-range support. Often, Tang Xiao's attacks fell into empty space, and instead, he would be injured by Qian Runshui's attacks. After a few rounds, Tang Xiao's aura rapidly plummeted, and his body was covered with wounds left behind by Qian Runshui and the elders ambushing him. Shameless, simply shameless. Tang Xiao's voice had become much hoarser. The desperate battle to the death and the glorious loneliness he had anticipated turned out to be like a joke. Not only did he not cause the enemy the slightest loss, but he was instead toyed with like a walking dog. Why was he so unlucky? The Qian family members that his grandfather and Tang Hao ran into were more upright than the last, yet he ran into an abnormal Qian family member who was as cunning as a ghost and as cautious as an old dog. He was unwilling to accept this. Tang Xiao had already lost the strength to attack. Standing on the spot in grief and indignation, his aura grew weaker and weaker. Your Majesty, the Supreme Pontiff, this fellow is done for. Let this subordinate finish him off. Qianjin Douluo, who had been targeted first, raised his head and said to Qian Runshui. During this battle, he hadn't even broken a sweat. Although it lacked the thrill of a normal battle, it was safe. At this age, he simply liked to pursue steady and secure happiness. Just attack him from a distance to prevent him from preparing a final dying strike. In this battle, with Tang Xiao, Qian Runshui was getting more and more insights into the Tao of caution. Even at this step, she still maintained her caution. Although the elders felt Qian Runshui was a bit overly cautious, they did not object. Being steady was good, it was much better than being reckless. Thus, one long-range attack after another landed on Tang Xiao. I am unwilling, I am unwilling. Tang Xiao, standing on the spot with wide eyes, had a chest full of grief and indignation that seemed to turn into substance. His weakness was not fake, but as Qian Runshui said, he indeed still retained the strength for one final blow. However, with this bit of stored power, even if Qian Runshui and the elders were careless to the extreme, it would still be difficult for Tang Xiao to successfully injure them. Yet even if his dying strike failed to injure them, startling the people of Spirit Hall would still be good, much better than such a frustrating way to die. Qian Runshui successively cast Angel's Roar 9 times, shot out Angelic Blade Light Rays 5 times, and threw down 3 holy swords condensed from holy light, not to mention the long-range attacks from the elders. When Qian Runshui signaled everyone to stop, Tang Xiao could no longer be recognized as human. Chapter 231 Properly arrange it for Tang San, the angry weed. Dead. Indeed dead. He is completely rotted. Your Majesty, the Supreme Pontiff, Tang Xiao is dead beyond all doubt. The Grand Elders surrounded the disfigured Tang Xiao, reporting the news of Tang Xiao's death one after another. Only then did Qian Runshui descend from the sky. Several Grand Elders did not dare to look at Qian Runshui, fearing they would expose their gazes. In their view, was Qian Runshui being a bit too cautious? Looking at Tang Xiao like this, let alone being alive, even a corpse springing back to life was impossible, yet Qian Runshui still waited for them to confirm it before approaching. Qian Runshui was indeed going a bit overboard. After tasting the benefits of caution, Qian Runshui treated it like some ultimate skill, directly using it as her guideline. When Qian Runshui approached and took a look, Tang Xiao was already unrecognizable, but his eyes were still wide open in anger, failing to close even in death. From those lifeless eyes, one could still see how deeply unwilling Tang Xiao was before his death. This is just a little interest owed by the Clear Sky sect. Sooner or later, I will make Tang Hao and his son follow in his footsteps. Qian Runshui had the Grand Elders search Shrek Academy, but failing to find Tang Hao's whereabouts, she turned back home. Although her main objective was not achieved, solving Tang Xiao and mastering the Tao of Caution left Qian Runshui not very depressed. Not long after Su Chen returned to the Heaven Human sect, the god of destruction contacted him once again. That brat Tang San can now be considered my legacy inheritor. It's time to start his divine trial. Help me brainstorm and design a proper destruction divine trial for him. The god of destruction no longer needed to worry much about Su Chen's side. The god positions of the 3 god kings were all prepared. Regardless of whether the divine force fusion succeeded or not, Su Chen had already achieved an unprecedented accomplishment. Therefore, the god of destruction prepared to focus all his energy on repaying God King Tang. Moreover, the attention of the 3 major god kings, the god of evil, the goddess of kindness, and the Asura god, was currently focused on the divine force fusion, who would still care about Tang San. The Asura god still cared, but he had no time right now. Therefore, even if the divine trial designed by the god of destruction for Tang San was a bit special, no one would mind. Senior, designing a divine trial is something you can just do yourself. After all, taking revenge personally is much more satisfying. Hey, what is our relationship? Is there any need to be so polite? Besides, you are going to be a god king in the future, so you need to familiarize yourself with the god position legacy process. The god of destruction felt that remote communication wasn't satisfying enough. Under the pretext of helping Su Chen resolve the last bit of god position conflict between the Asura god, the god of evil, and the goddess of kindness, he once again brought Su Chen to the god realm. This time, Douluo Bo, who knew Su Chen was going to the god realm and had rushed over eagerly, watched helplessly as Su Chen disappeared from the Douluo continent. Douluo Bo was so envious that his saliva was almost drooling out. He actually really wanted to ask Su Chen to take him to the god realm to have a look in advance, but in the end, he couldn't open his mouth, only looking eagerly at Su Chen. I'm not envious at all. Anyway, I will follow the sect master to the god realm in the future, there's no need to look in advance. Su Chen once again came to Destruction Castle. He no longer just felt uncurious as if returning home, he even felt that the environment of Destruction Castle was somewhat monotonous. The god of evil, the goddess of kindness, and the Asura god also made a trip to Destruction Castle. After checking whether Su Chen had any extra conditions, they expressed their gratitude to the god of destruction. Clearly being their legacy inheritor, the god of destruction cared so much and even remembered to help Su Chen resolve a tiny bit of caution's god position conflict. Although none of them could see what conflict the god positions would still have after the divine forces were entangled together. But the realm of the god of destruction was higher than theirs, and he must see deeper than them. If the god of destruction didn't step in to help, perhaps their next divine force fusion would fail because of this tiny god position conflict. In short, it could be summed up in one sentence. The god of destruction is a kind-hearted man. Even the Asura god, who had previously lost to the god of destruction in full view of everyone, changed his view of the god of destruction. Of course, he still thought the god of destruction was a bit foolish. After the god of evil and the others left Destruction Castle to continue discussing the details of the divine force fusion, the god of destruction finally began discussing serious business with Su Chen. Let me tell you my general idea first, then you can help me refine it. The god of destruction was not completely unprepared, relying entirely on Su Chen to help design it. Not to mention the details of the divine trial, my general idea is to let Tang San go through untold hardships to finally complete all divine trials. After obtaining the god position, he will find that the god position he got is not the god position of the god of destruction and the goddess of life, but two third-rate god positions. Although it was the god of evil and the goddess of kindness who designed the fake god position for Tang San. But the god of destruction felt that he couldn't waste their painstaking efforts and had to make use of them. Moreover, when Tang San was at his most smug, plunging him back into the abyss would build the pleasure of revenge to its peak. One had to say, the god of destruction's love for Tang San was truly profound. Furthermore, the god of destruction also thought of how in his past life he had held the advantage, successfully seized control of the god realm, and after having the advantage, was knocked into the abyss by Tang San. What he was doing could also be said to be returning the favor in kind. Su Chen listened and nodded repeatedly. Senior, your idea is very good, extremely good. I only have one small suggestion. The god of destruction patted Su Chen on the shoulder. Don't call me senior from now on, just call me Big Brother Destruction. That wouldn't be appropriate, right? Su Chen quickly declined. I am so much younger than you, and I have received so many favors from you, calling you Big Brother is truly too impolite. The god of destruction said, don't care about these trivial things. You will come to the god realm sooner or later, and you alone hold the positions of 3 major god kings. Your status is second to none. It can be said that in the future god realm, except for you, no one can stand shoulder to shoulder with me. It couldn't be better to address each other as brothers. Su Chen didn't ask, what about the goddess of life, thinking the god of destruction must have already made arrangements. With the god of destruction repeatedly demanding it, Su Chen had no choice but to shout. Big Brother Destruction, please continue to guide me in the future. The god of destruction laughed heartily. That's right. From now on I will call you Little Brother Su Chen, this way it seems closer. All right, little brother, what was the suggestion you just mentioned? Su Chen, who had lost a senior and gained an older brother even closer than a biological brother, said. Big Brother, your idea is very good, but if Tang San becomes a god and you forcibly kill him, it will somewhat give other deities in the god realm ideas. Of course, I know Big Brother, you don't care about these, but wouldn't it be better and more satisfying to kill Tang San in a justified manner? The god of destruction nodded and said, it's still you, little brother, who thinks more thoroughly. The god of destruction indeed didn't care about the opinions of other deities, as long as he could happily take revenge on Tang San. But if they could achieve the best of both worlds, wouldn't that be even better? Little brother, tell me how we can justify killing Tang San. That would naturally be to give Tang San a reason to be justifiably killed. Su Chen seemed to have spoken nonsense, but the god of destruction quite agreed. Little brother, you were right. As long as Tang San becomes an evil god like the Rakshasa god whom everyone and dogs loathe and everyone avoids, the deities of the god realm will probably eager to have him die early, lest they be harmed by him in the future. Without Su Chen having to specifically explain the method, the god of destruction figured it out himself. The fake god position made by the god of evil has its core coming from the god of tyranny and the god of weeds. If I add some seasoning, he will have to go crazy if he isn't already, and he will have to turn evil if he isn't already. The corners of Su Chen's mouth twitched slightly. Being served in turn by several god kings, Tang San's blessings were truly as boundless as the Eastern Sea. The god position of tyranny plus the god position of weeds, what is this? The Angry Weed. Chapter 232, Tang San's Divine Trial, the inherently evil god of destruction. Little San, you should go rest. In a dense forest near the sea on the Douluo continent, an exhausted Tang Hao said to Tang San. After escaping from the village where Shrek Academy was located, they fled all the way to the coast. Tang San had already prepared to set sail if Spirit Hall could still pursue them. Not to mention towns, they did not even dare to enter some small villages. Qian Runshui was unlike Bibi Dong, who was completely indifferent to hunting them down. Back when Bibi Dong was the supreme pontiff, Tang Hao brought Tang San to live openly in Saint Spirit Village, not to mention disguising their appearances, they had not even concealed their names. Even so, they were still able to live there peacefully. But now Qian Runshui was in power. Portraits of the father and son Tang Hao and Tang San, along with the group of Shrek members who fled with them, had been distributed everywhere by Qian Runshui. Anyway, every village had a spirit hall that helped children with their awakening every year, and the priests were very familiar with the villages under the towns. The portraits were posted outside every spirit hall, and people were constantly dispatched to spread the word that as long as one could provide clues about Tang San and the others, they would receive a reward from Spirit Hall. As a result, even ordinary people who could not become a spirit master became immensely enthusiastic about searching for Tang San and the others. In Saint Spirit Village where Tang Hao and Tang San used to live, many people slapped their thighs in deep regret. I could tell long ago that that fellow Tang Hao was no good. Why did I not think of reporting him to Spirit Hall back then? Given Tang Hao's temper, even village chief Jack, who took good care of Tang San, was an eyesore to him, so one could imagine his popularity in the village. Moreover, reporting him could also yield generous rewards. Provided by Spirit Hall, some villagers even looked forward to Tang Hao returning for a trip. After Tang San pacified the Shrek people a little, focusing on calming down the irritable Luer Long, he finally gained a moment of peace. For Yu Shaogang, Luer Long could even throw her life away. Along this journey, she had requested many times for Tang San to rescue Yu Shaogang. But Tang San was already too late to stay away from Spirit Hall. How could he dare to deliver himself to their doorstep again? Spirit Hall now was not what he was familiar with in his past life. In his past life, he, the son of Spirit Hall's enemy, had swaggered into Spirit City with a transformed 100,000-year-old spirit beast to participate in the Spirit Master competition and win rewards. If Xiao Wu's identity had not been exposed after the final battle, Spirit Hall might have had to swallow their anger and send them off. But this lifetime, Spirit Hall acted with too little bottom line. They did not follow any rules at all, doing nothing except hunt them down endlessly. Tang San even incomparably yearned for the Spirit Hall of his past life. Would it not be better if you just honestly waited for me to grow up and then obediently marched to your deaths? After reminiscing about the past and focusing his mourning on Xiao Wu, who had turned into someone else's spirit ring, Tang San cheered up and prepared to cultivate against the clock. Just at that moment, he finally obtained what he had dreamed of on the run. The divine trial of the god of destruction and the goddess of life has finally begun. Tang San was so excited he was almost moved to tears. For the god positions of these two god kings, he had even thoroughly offended the Asura god. If he could not initiate the divine trials of the god of destruction and the goddess of life, Tang San would have had the heart to find a piece of tofu and crash into it to death. Destruction and rebirth, a joint divine trial of the god of destruction and the goddess of life. Defying the heavens to alter fate and returning to the peak as at this very moment. Tang San's uncontrollable, excited voice startled even Tang Hao, who had gone to take care of Tang Chen, who was roughing it out in the open air with them. Little San, what is it? Back when Tang Xiao was here, the chores of serving shit and urine, feeding porridge, and wiping the body of Tang Chen, who was in a vegetative state, had never fallen onto Tang Hao's head. Now that Tang Xiao was gone, Tang Hao finally knew that these trivial matters he had originally looked down upon were actually so tedious and troublesome. Tang Hao had constantly suppressed his anger and unwillingness, and these trivial and even disgusting matters continuously wore away at Tang Hao's patience. He had thought more than once that it would be great if his grandfather could just die quietly. But unfortunately, despite Tang Chen's ghost-like state, his vitality was abnormally tenacious. Clearly unable to even open his eyes, yet he just refused to die. "Dad, the divine trial has begun, my divine trial has finally begun. Little San, is what you said true?" Tang Hao's excitement was not a bit less than Tang San's. How many years had it been? He had finally heard some good news. Alas, Big Brother was too impulsive. If he could have persisted a little longer, the rejuvenation of our Clear Sky sect would have been within sight. The suppression and depression accumulated in Tang Hao's heart for a long time could finally be released a little bit. Furthermore, among the god positions inherited by Little San was also that of the goddess of life. His accumulated old injuries and even his missing arm might perhaps recover. "Little San, what is your divine trial? Is the difficulty high?" Only then did Tang San slightly calm his excited mood. Living for 3 lifetimes, he originally should not have been so unable to control his emotions, but he had been suppressed for too long and simply could not control himself. When Tang San settled his mind and learned about the contents of the divine trial, a hint of conflict instantly arose in his heart. "What, is the difficulty of the divine trial very high?" Although Tang San's expression did not change much, Tang Hao could still tell at a glance that something was wrong. "It is not that the difficulty is high, but—" "Never mind, Dad, let me think about it myself." Tang San discovered that this so-called destruction and rebirth divine trial actually required him to continuously harm and destroy the bodies of those around him, and then grant them healing. Moreover, the degree would continuously deepen, and in the end, he even had to test it on himself. Tang San was not afraid of trouble. In this lifetime, he had not had the time to cultivate deep bonds with the Shrek people. Making a move on them would not cause Tang San too much conflict. Besides, it was only causing them a little damage, not like he would not help treat them. Besides, after he became a god, it would also be of great benefit to Shrek. What made Tang San conflicted was that, besides the Shrek people, the target candidates also included Tang Hao and himself. Putting everything else aside, in terms of being a son, Tang San was truly filial. Using Tang Hao as an experimental material always presented a hurdle in Tang San's heart. Forget it, fortunately the first divine trial does not require Dad to pay a price yet, starting with the Shrek students will do. Tang San prepared to pass 1 or 2 divine trials first to see what kind of gains he would get before deciding. Although he possessed 2 god positions in his past life, he had actually only passed the divine trial of the sea god. Furthermore, how should he put the sea god's divine trial? It was almost like a gift package delivery. Not only were the rewards generous, but they could also act as a team, making it hardly difficult at all. He wondered if the god of destruction and the goddess of life were as generous as the sea god. 2 god kings could not possibly be inferior to a single sea god, could they? Under Tang Hao's watchful gaze, Tang San walked towards Ma Hongjun and the others. Tang San constantly pondered the meaning of the divine trials of the god of destruction and the goddess of life. Healing was easy to say, it matched the consistent traits of the goddess of life. It was just that harming others, and even harming those close to him, took a somewhat unorthodox and extreme path. In the end, Tang San could only attribute it to, as expected of the inherently evil god of destruction, only he could design such a divine trial. Of course, Tang San only dared to mutter inwardly and did not dare to speak it out loud. Although his view of the god of destruction was still very poor, he was currently counting on obtaining the other party's god position, so he could not afford to offend him. Chapter 233, The God of Destruction is not some kind of devil. Am I right? The naturally evil Tang San wouldn't hesitate at all. He acted like he was so conflicted before, but in the end, he made up his mind immediately. Inside Destruction Castle, the 2 divine trial master designers, the god of destruction and Su Chen, who would hold 3 god-king god positions in the future, were overlooking the lower realm. Su Chen looked at Tang San, who had called Ma Hongjun, Oscar, and Dai Mubai aside, and nodded approvingly. Brilliant insight, Big Brother Destruction. Su Chen leaned against the throne crafted for him by the god of destruction, leaning back comfortably. This way, he was living the life of a high and mighty god king overlooking the lower realm in advance. No wonder Tang San was so enthusiastic about interfering in the lower realm, stirring up trouble, and making 10,000-year grand plans after becoming a god. Is toying with other people's fates really that interesting? Thinking of it, Su Chen directly threw this question to the veteran, Sanologist, the god of destruction. The god of destruction laughed out loud. Whether it's interesting or not, won't we know if we let Tang San, the person who loves doing this the most, experience it firsthand? However, this time it wasn't Tang San's turn to sit high in the 9 heavens and toy with the lower realm. Now the person being toyed with had become himself. The god of destruction added, when he completes all his divine trials, we will ask him face to face. I suppose his feelings will be very profound. Brilliant, Big Brother Destruction, you not only kill, but you also attack the heart. Truly brilliant. Tang San's expression upon hearing this question would surely be spectacular. Lower realm. Tang San led the 3 Ma Hongjun far away before finally stopping. Little Tang San, why did you call us over? We've been running around all day, can't you let us rest properly? Dai Mubai and the others were filled with suppressed anger. Anyone who was needlessly implicated to the point of not being able to return home and constantly worried about their safety wouldn't feel good. I have a favor I'd like to ask you for help with. Once the favor is done, you can go and rest. The 3 of them endured and endured. If Tang Hao hadn't been there, they would have already fallen out with Tang San. Speak, what help do you want us to provide? Let's make it clear first, our abilities are limited, and we certainly can't do things that are too dangerous. There was even a smile on Tang San's face. Rest assured, it's very simple and not very dangerous. Dai Mubai and the 3 of them were just about to breathe a sigh of relief when they heard Tang San add a very soft sentence at the end. You just need to endure the pain. What? Dai Mubai and the others didn't hear clearly, or rather, didn't understand. But Tang San didn't explain anything further this time. Rather than explaining that it was for the divine trial requiring them to make sacrifices and not getting any understanding, it was better to just do it first and talk later. Anyway, in their past lives, they also relied on him to obtain the Sea God divine trial and gain so many benefits, so consider it paying back a debt. On the way here after calling them over, Tang San had already started poisoning them. It wasn't a very fierce poison, just enough to make them pass out. Letting them endure the pain while unconscious could be considered Tang San's final tenderness towards them. Moreover, after they woke up, Tang San could still find an excuse to say they had been attacked. Actually, Tang San's methods didn't have to be so crude. Finding an opportunity to let the 3 of them, accidentally, get injured would greatly reduce their suspicion of him. But Tang San simply couldn't wait any longer. If the method was a bit crude, so be it, the method wasn't important, the result was what mattered. Besides, it wasn't just a matter of acting once, it would be exposed sooner or later anyway, so a little earlier or later didn't matter. With Dad around, they couldn't turn things upside down. Tang San's first divine trial required him to let 3 classmates suffer bone-shattering injuries and then heal them with his own ability. Looking at the 3 people fallen on the ground, Tang San decided to start with Dai Mubai first. Dai Mubai was the oldest, and he was an attack system battle spirit master whose physique was also the sturdiest, so he could endure it. Moreover, Tang San wasn't sure to what extent this bone-shattering injury should be inflicted, so he needed to test it first. Since Boss Dai was the boss, if not him for this kind of thing, then who? Big Brother, do you want to help Tang San a little? Destruction Castle. Su Chen saw the god of destruction make a small trick. Yeah, how could Tang San's good brothers endure this kind of thing while unconscious? I'll help them wake up and make their senses a bit keener. Besides, I am doing this so that Tang San can comprehend the way of destruction more thoroughly. If he wants my god position, he has to put in some effort after all. Su Chen asked a question he already knew the answer to, and the god of destruction played it straight. They were both experts at playing dumb. Tang San had just broken the bone of Dai Mubai's left forearm. Dai Mubai, who had originally been struck by a secret medicine strong enough to make even a wild boar sleep deeply for a day, suddenly struggled and shrieked like a sacrificial pig waiting to be slaughtered. It hurts me to death. As a spirit master, and a battle spirit master who charged at the front, Dai Mubai logically had a relatively strong ability to endure pain. But firstly, the incident happened suddenly, and secondly, for some reason, his pain perception became exceptionally sensitive, causing him to struggle exceptionally fiercely and scream exceptionally miserably. The moment Dai Mubai opened his eyes, he saw Tang San hitting his arm with a hammer. Dai Mubai was immediately startled. Thinking back to Tang San asking them for help, he thought Tang San had gone mad and wanted to kill them. He didn't even have time to get up and rolled around repeatedly. While rolling around, Dai Mubai shouted, "Murder, murder, Tang San is going to murder someone." Tang San hadn't expected that he had specially increased the dosage, which included poison that numbed the pain sense, yet Dai Mubai woke up so quickly. Could that medicine have expired? Fortunately, Tang San's strength was far above Dai Mubai's. Stepping on the ghost shadow perplexing step, he chased after him and struck the back of Dai Mubai's neck. Based on Tang San's experience, this strike would definitely make someone pass out. But instead of fainting, Dai Mubai shrieked even more miserably, as if the Grim Reaper was chasing him. Tang San struck fiercely a few more times, but Dai Mubai still didn't faint. Tang San felt that if he used any more force, he might even snap Dai Mubai's neck. At this moment, Dai Mubai finally remembered that he was still a spirit master, and his white tiger spirit was about to possess him immediately. Troublesome. Tang San hardened his heart. Since he didn't appreciate the intention of sparing Dai Mubai from pain while unconscious, he could only resort to force. Blue-silver binding. The only spirit ability Tang San kept the same as in his past life, which was also his signature spirit ability, was cast out. Dai Mubai, who was both in pain and somewhat dazed, was immediately bound. "Mubai, behave yourself. I don't want to hurt you. Wouldn't it be good to obediently help me with this favor?" Tang San smeared another handful of poison onto Dai Mubai's face. However, this time it wasn't a sleeping potion, but a poison that cut off the circulation of spirit power. This time the poison finally took effect. The circulation of Dai Mubai's spirit power quickly ran into problems, and he exited the state of spirit possession. After all, the god of destruction was not some kind of devil. He just didn't want Dai Mubai and the others to faint. As for whether they could use their spirit power or not, that had nothing to do with the god of destruction. Dai Mubai looked at Tang San approaching step by step, his eyes filled with fear. He had already been implicated by Tang San to this extent. What else did Tang San want to do to him? "You, Tang San, what on earth do you want to do? Have you gone mad? I am your classmate, your enemy is Spirit Hall. I know, what I am doing is precisely to deal with Spirit Hall." Tang San didn't know why Dai Mubai was so hard to knock out. Could it be a special physique? However, although it was a bit more troublesome, the one truly out of luck was Dai Mubai. Why did he need to endure extra pain? When Tang San walked up in front of Dai Mubai, two startled voices sounded. "Tang San, Boss Dai, what are you guys doing?" Ma Hongjun and Oscar had also woken up. Chapter 234, We are all brothers, and you sold me out. Ma Hongjun and Oscar did not have their hands broken, and woke up slightly slower. As soon as the two opened their eyes, they saw Dai Mubai being bound by Tang San's blue-silver grass with his feet off the ground. Dai Mubai was still saying things like, "Don't come over," with a look of terror on his face, while Tang San also emitted a strange smile. Ma Hongjun and Oscar were people who had seen and experienced much despite their young age, and instantly thought of something crooked. Oh no, could this guy Tang San have become mentally perverted after losing Xiao Wu? "We know you were repressed, but you shouldn't be repressed to this extent. Even if you missed Zhu Zuqing or even teacher Lu Erlong. Calling the three of us brothers over to do this kind of thing, isn't that going too far?" It was true that Ma Hongjun liked to vent his evil fire, but he didn't like it in this way. Third brother, calm down, we are all men, don't be impulsive. Ma Hongjun said. Fatty, Oscar, this guy Tang San has gone mad, he wants to kill us, come save me. Dai Mubai was almost angered to death. What time was it, and what kind of messy things were in this fatty's head? What? Compared to Tang San taking a fancy to them, Ma Hongjun and Oscar found it even harder to believe that Tang San wanted to kill them. Tang San had offended Spirit Hall and still brought them along when running away. Although they really didn't want Tang San to value them so much, how could Tang San possibly want to kill them? Could it be that they were emergency rations brought along by Tang San? Ma Hongjun and Oscar still thought there was some misunderstanding, and after standing up, they were about to go rescue Dai Mubai. As a result, the moment they stood up, blue-silver binding, blue-silver binding, Ma Hongjun and Oscar were bound together, and likewise, 2 handfuls of poison were smeared on their faces. Now Ma Hongjun and Oscar finally completely believed Dai Mubai's words, but Dai Mubai was so angry that he cursed vehemently. Are you too stupid? I already said Tang San wanted to kill us, and you still didn't have any vigilance at all. Dai Mubai was still counting on these 2 guys to save him, but in the blink of an eye, they ended up in the same fate as him. Ma Hongjun and Oscar panicked. Little San, calm down, I know you are under a lot of pressure, aren't we all following you? Whatever difficult hurdles there are, we can get through them together. Even though they didn't know how many times they had greeted the 18 generations of Tang San's ancestors in their hearts, on the surface, Ma Hongjun and the others still wore the expression of, we are your best brothers. Rest assured, I won't kill you, I just want to ask you for a favor. As he spoke, Tang San snapped the forearm bone of Dai Mubai's right hand again. The bone-shattering injury required by the divine trial was not enough. By merely breaking one arm, Tang San still needed to continue experimenting. Tang San, fuck %. Dai Mubai opened his mouth and spat out a string of curses. Being implicated by Tang San into such a state, yet Tang San was still torturing him, was this something a human could do? I need to complete the divine trial, and these are all part of the divine trial. You will suffer a bit of grievance now. After I become a god, I will definitely let you become gods together with me, and we will go to the god realm to enjoy blessings together. Tang San's face was cold, and when he snapped Dai Mubai's arm, his expression did not show the slightest bit of fluctuation. Tang San's vigilance had risen to the extreme. If Dai Mubai waking up early was still an accident, then for Ma Hongjun and Oscar to wake up so quickly as well was definitely not normal. Even if the sleeping potion had expired, the effect wouldn't be this poor. Someone must be playing tricks. No, that's not right, perhaps it wasn't a human. Tang San did not think of the god of destruction, but instead felt that it was possible the Asura god was targeting him. Having experienced the Asura god bringing people with the Asura demon sword to snatch away the spirit rings of Xiao Wu, Da Ming, and Ming, Tang San had a heart-wrenching realization of the Asura god's pettiness. The Asura god was not only petty, but also never delayed revenge overnight. Looking at it now, snatching away his spirit rings was not the end. The Asura god might continue to target him. This was not a good thing for Tang San. Being targeted by another deity while undergoing a divine trial, the lesson of his great-grandfather Tang Chen was right before his eyes. Moreover, the Asura god was not something the Rakshasa god could compare to. Being constantly remembered by a god king, the immense difficulty of completing the divine trial could be imagined. Tang San was even somewhat glad now that the divine trials of the god of destruction and the goddess of life were not to challenge some powerful spirit beast. If it were like that, with the Asura god targeting him from above, one slight carelessness could result in perishing in the beast's mouth. Thinking this way, Tang San's mood to complete the divine trial became increasingly urgent. He couldn't constantly be on guard against the Asura god's meddling. He had to complete the divine trial early to master power and possess the confidence to deal with the Asura god. Thinking about these things, Tang San's hand placed once again on Dai Mubai's arm. Both forearms were fractured, yet still didn't meet the requirements. What the divine trial mentioned was bone shattering. It seemed just fracturing was not shattered enough. Dai Mubai was still clamoring. He simply didn't believe Tang San's bullshit about completing a divine trial. What kind of divine trial was about torturing people? Could it be the god of torture or the god of torment? How could there be such a perverted deity? You've gone mad, you've simply gone mad. Both my arms have been broken by you, and you still want to. Tang San thoroughly kneaded the bone structures of Dai Mubai's 2 forearms into large and small fragments, which could be described as a comminuted fracture. This time he was very decisive, without trying bit by bit. Although Tang San was expressionless, he remembered every word Dai Mubai used to curse him in his heart. This could also be considered a minor punishment to warn him. Finally, this time it met the requirements. But accompanying it was Dai Mubai's inhuman screech of agony. Having groped out the knack, Tang San abandoned the pale-faced, trembling Dai Mubai and walked towards Ma Hongjun and Oscar. Don't, third brother, I even called you brother, don't come over. Dai Mubai's miserable state frightened them. In their eyes, Tang San was now more terrifying than a devil. Little San, the dean and the teachers are not far away. If we don't go back for a long time, they will definitely come looking for us. Although Clear Sky Douluo is powerful, he is injured after all. We are all brothers, why are you laying your hands on us? Oscar was still rational, constantly explaining the pros and cons. But unfortunately, Tang San was not acting on a whim, nor was he mentally deranged, but rather wanted to complete the divine trial. I already said I want to complete the divine trial, why won't you believe me? Once the divine trial rewards are issued, you will know my good intentions. Between Ma Hongjun and Oscar, Tang San chose to strike at Ma Hongjun first. Ma Hongjun cried with tears and snot streaming down. Third brother, don't look at how fat I am, it's actually all bloating. I can't take this kind of torture, you should find Oscar first, he is older and can endure pain better than me. Adhering to the principle of, fellow Taoist dies, not poor Taoist, Ma Hongjun wanted to transfer the firepower onto Oscar. Oscar's face turned dark, half from fright and half from being angered by Ma Hongjun. We are all brothers, and you sold me out. In the distance, Flender indeed noticed that Tang San and the others had not returned for a long time. Moreover, Dai Mubai's shrieks of agony were too loud. Even though they were relatively far away, Flender and Luer Long still heard a bit of movement. Worried that something might happen, Flender was just about to go over and check out the situation when he was stopped by Tang Hao. Chapter 235, False Brotherhood. This life wouldn't be exchanged even for being a god. Your Excellency Haoshan, Hongjun and the others left a while ago, and I am worried something might happen to them. Tang Hao said, with little San here, there won't be any problems. Hurry up and rest. All right, I will rest right now. Your Excellency Haoshan, you should rest early too. Flender felt even more that something was wrong. Saying that with Tang San around there wouldn't be any problems, precisely because Tang San was there, he felt even more that there was a problem. But with Tang Hao right in front of him, Flender did not dare to persist in his own opinion, and could only return with a belly full of doubts and worries. Yet Tang Hao still stood in place, looking towards the direction where Tang San and the others had left. Even Flender could hear a few sounds, so Tang Hao would only hear them much more clearly. Little San, is this your divine trial? Tang Hao waited for quite a while longer before Tang San finally brought back Dai Mubai and the other two. Dai Mubai's hands were both hanging down, while Ma Hongjun and Oscar only had one hand hanging down. Facts proved that this first divine trial only required shattering one arm into pieces. The complexions of Dai Mubai and the other two were all pale, and each of their gazes when looking at Tang San carried deep fear. A madman, and moreover a madman who liked to torture people, yet whose strength was much higher than theirs, who could not be afraid of this. The only thing worth being glad about was that Tang San only tortured them once and truly did not want their lives. You guys go back and rest. I will help cure your injuries, so you don't need to worry. As for what can be said and what cannot be said, you should be clear in your hearts. Understood. We were attacked by people from Spirit Hall, and thanks to you for saving us. Ma Hongjun and the others said timidly. Of course they hated Tang San, and they hated him incomparably. But Tang San fed them poison, so they truly did not dare to go against Tang San's meaning. The previous sudden loss of consciousness and the blockage of spirit power both proved how powerful Tang San's poison was. They truly did not dare to gamble on whether they could endure it. Besides, they had already been tortured. Surely Tang San wouldn't use the excuse of a divine trial to torture them next time, right? Tang San also didn't expect to be able to hide it from Flender and the others forever. He just wanted to drag it out until the first divine trial was completed, letting Dai Mubai and the others know what he said was true, and perhaps then they could understand him. Having the hope of being pulled up after achieving godhood, suffering a little injury was something they should be able to accept. After the three of them returned tremblingly, Tang Hao looked into Tang San's eyes and said, "Little San, let's talk." "All right." Tang San nodded with a stiff expression. "Is this a part of the divine trials of the god of destruction and the goddess of life?" Tang Hao went straight to the point and asked briskly. "Yes, Dad. I didn't want to be like this either, but..." Tang Hao waved his hand. "You don't need to explain these things. As long as you can become stronger, this slight price is nothing. This can also be considered a little help these burdens can provide." Tang San breathed a slight sigh of relief. If Tang Hao felt he was too cruel and unrighteous and refused to support him, Tang San would be in big trouble. Tang Hao continued to ask, "Afterwards, will you also target the others from Shrek, and even include me, to complete the divine trial?" Tang San's head seemed to become somewhat heavy as he nodded with difficulty. Although Tang San felt a bit apologetic about making a move against the people from Shrek, it was only a little. But Tang Hao was his father. For a son to harm his father was unfilial. Yet Tang Hao saw things more openly. "You don't need to have any burden. As long as it can help you achieve godhood, just go ahead and do it." "Dad." Tang San's eyes were filled with tears. Coming to this day, the only one Tang San could rely on and be accompanied by was this father, Tang Hao. If it weren't as a last resort, how could he ever be willing to harm Tang Hao? "Don't cry. In the future you can bleed and sweat, but you just cannot shed tears. Do you remember?" Tang San wiped his face. "I remember, Dad. I will definitely achieve godhood, absolutely." Only then did Tang Hao pat Tang San's shoulder somewhat gently. "Can your first divine trial be considered completed?" Tang San shook his head and said, "I still need to help them cure their injuries. First destruction and then rebirth, only this is a complete divine trial." After being silent for a moment, Tang Hao said in a cold voice, "I know Dai Mubai and the others achieved godhood together with you in your past life, and they could also help you in the god realm, but this life is different from the past life. After you achieve godhood, you need to make a resolute decision." Tang San was very clear on the meaning of Tang Hao's words. He already planned to wipe out the 7 treasure glazed tile school after achieving godhood, which included Ning Rongrong, a companion from his past life. Moreover, Tang San did not dare to expect Dai Mubai and the others to completely forget the harm he had caused them, even if there would be compensation in the future. In order to leave no future troubles, let these companions last only until before achieving godhood. "I understand, Dad." Go ahead. Whatever medicinal herbs you need, I will help you find a way." On the other side, the return of Dai Mubai and the other two caused a sensation among Flender and the others. Having left for just this little while, how did all 3 of them get injured? God Realm, Destruction Castle. Did you see that? This is Tang San. On the surface, he is full of benevolence and morality, but in reality, it is all fake and extremely hypocritical. In the past life, after the god of destruction imprisoned Tang San, these people who were nominally Tang San's brothers but actually his lacklings desperately tried to save him. Truly, what full brotherhood! As a result, when Tang San harmed these brothers, he didn't hesitate at all. The god of destruction indeed hated Tang San the most, but he felt the same hatred by extension towards Tang San's scoundrel son-in-law and lacklings. Big Brother Destruction, after Tang San completes the first divine trial, what reward do you plan to give him? The god of destruction smiled and said, "Doesn't Tang San hope to improve his strength? Then I will help him improve his strength." As he spoke, the god of destruction pulled out several clusters of divine force of different colors, none of which looked like anything good. "These are divine forces I managed to get hold of, coming respectively from the god of wrath, the god of hatred, the god of madness, the god of corruption. I will use these divine forces to help Tang San improve his strength. Su Chen's mouth twitched. Just hearing about these divine forces, they sounded potent enough. The deities who controlled these negative emotions would sometimes be affected by these negative emotions themselves. With all these messy divine forces integrated together, no matter how normal a person's mind was, they couldn't take it. Tang San already frequently had red eyes and panted like an ox. If he were nurtured wave after wave like this by the god of destruction, he would probably be crazier than a madman and more evil than an evil god. Tang San also used to be a god king. Big brother, when you help him improve his strength, make sure you don't let him grow suspicious. Rest assured, with my current strength, let alone the fact that Tang San is no longer a god king, even if he still were a god king, he wouldn't be able to see through my methods. That's good. Big brother destruction, I should head back. With the good show finished watching, Su Chen should also go down. Alright, I'll send you back right now. Little brother, you might still have to stay in the lower realm for quite some time. If you want to come back to the god realm to visit again, contact me anytime. Alrighty, I definitely won't stand on ceremony with you, big brother destruction. Su Chen felt that with his current days, whether he achieved godhood or not was all the same. Not only did he not need to worry about lifespan issues, but he could also enter and exit the god realm at any time. Wasn't this an immortal's life? That's right, have a smooth journey, little brother. The god of destruction waved a strand of divine force, steadily sending Su Chen back to the Douluo continent. Chapter 236, Spirit Masters found their true profession, disorder-splitting windhammer method. In 3 months, obvious changes had appeared on the Douluo continent. Several large-scale spirit tool factories were established and had gradually begun putting into production. In the seaside port, an unprecedented large spirit tool ship was also being rapidly built. With the full support of Hu Chengxing, the only emperor of the Douluo continent, everything was rapidly getting back on track. Even the historically aloof Spirit Hall had sent a large number of spirit masters to participate. Needless to say, compared to combat, spirit masters were even better at laying mortar, moving bricks, and engaging in construction. If not for this labor force of spirit masters, no matter how much Hu Chengxing wanted to complete Su Chen's task, the pace would definitely not have been this fast. Of course, this was also thanks to the wealth confiscated from those noble households. The Douluo continent had always practiced hereditary nobility, and many nobles had amassed wealth over hundreds and thousands of years. It was truly a waste for this wealth to fall into their hands, so using it to promote the progress of the times could be considered putting it to good use. However, these 3 months had made Tang San somewhat anxious. He had always been eager to complete the divine trial as soon as possible. But Dai Mubai and the others' injuries were all caused by Tang San himself, and treating that level of comminuted fractures was not easy at all. Especially since Tang San was not a healing-type spirit master, those life attribute spirit rings he attached to his blue-silver grass martial soul could only be used to buff himself. Relying on conventional medical methods, Tang San pieced together Dai Mubai and the others' shattered bones bit by bit. It could be said that the degree of suffering from piecing the shattered bones back together surpassed even when their bones were broken in the first place. After all, the bones shattering only happened in an instant, but piecing them back together lasted for a long time. Yet Tang San refused to let Flender and the others look for a healing-type spirit master, insisting on treating them with his own abilities. Fortunately, Dai Mubai and the others were spirit masters. Otherwise, let alone whether their arms could heal completely, it would be considered lucky if they weren't tortured into insanity. And today, Dai Mubai, whose arm bones had been completely shattered, finally recovered as the last one. It is complete, the first divine trial is finally complete. Upon learning that the first divine trial was complete, Tang San couldn't help laughing wildly. However, this performance of his fell into the eyes of Dai Mubai and the others, who only felt that he had gone even more mad. It would be one thing if you use the divine trial to fool us, but how come you even believe it yourself? Have you deceived yourself to this extent? But in the next instant, they all felt Tang San's aura suddenly strengthened by a notch, and his blue-silver grass martial soul and clear sky hammer involuntarily surfaced. Did you really obtain the divine trial? The pent-up frustration in Tang San's heart finally dissipated a little, and he smiled and said to Dai Mubai and the others. I told you that the reason I wanted to treat you myself was to complete the divine trial. See for yourselves. Tang San's blue-silver grass martial soul originally had 5 spirit rings. At this moment, without hunting any spirit beast, the 6th spirit ring had actually condensed out of thin air. Not only that, but an extra spirit ring also appeared on Tang San's clear sky hammer, which had not yet added a new spirit ring. At this, Dai Mubai and the others, who still harbored some doubts, finally completely believed Tang San's words. This kind of miracle was something only deities could accomplish. Yet the 3 of them did not feel good. Inside, why were they the ones being tortured, while Tang San was the one reaping the benefits? Also, what kind of deity would set up a divine trial that harms and tortures others? Feeling his rapidly growing power, Tang San felt a sense of delight welling up from within. Before completing the first divine trial, his spirit power was at level 58. Without obtaining the immortal herbs of the ice and fire yin-yang like in his previous life, being able to maintain a faster cultivate speed than his past life was already very good. But Tang San was still unsatisfied. After all, frequently being chased and fleeing everywhere made him crave power immensely. Especially since Xiao Wu's, Da Ming's, and Ming's spirit rings were snatched away by Su Chen, and learning that Qian Runshui had activated the divine trial ahead of schedule, how could Tang San not be anxious? Fortunately, he was finally back on track now, and the divine trial of the god of destruction and the goddess of life had also completed its first trial. Not only did he obtain 2 spirit rings, but his spirit power also increased from level 58 to level 62. My spirit power increased by 4 levels. Not bad. If a sudden increase of 4 levels of spirit power happened to Dai Mubai and the others, who knew how happy they would be. But to Tang San, it was just ordinary. Even he felt that if it weren't a joint divine trial, but rather separate ones from the god of destruction and the goddess of life, the rewards he received might have been even more. But there was no help for it, since the 2 divine trials had merged into one, he could only accept it. Little San, adding spirit rings to your second martial soul right now, will there be any issues? Amidst his excitement, Tang Hao also expressed concern. Cultivating 2 martial souls at the same time, the fate of the last twin spirit master to do so was not very good. Rest assured, Dad, these are spirit rings attached to me by the god of destruction. And the goddess of life, so there won't be any problems. Moreover, with my ability, I can definitely control the conflict between the martial souls. Tang San appeared particularly confident, even arrogant. Tang Hao only thought that Tang San had been suppressed for too long, coupled with a sudden increase in power, which gave him such confidence. Thinking that since it was a reward from the divine trial, the problem shouldn't be big. Little San, what are your 2 spirit abilities? Tang San said excitedly. My blue-silver grass 6th spirit ability is named Wildfire Endless, and the clear sky hammer's 1st spirit ability is named Frenzied Hammer. Tang San had missed out on Yin's spirit bone in this life. But in his previous life, he had absorbed it. Yin's spirit bone had provided him with flight capability and a spirit ability named, Wildfire Burns Endless, Spring Breeze Blows Anew. Now, this spirit ability of his was quite similar to his mother's spirit bone skill, both provided him with decent recovery capabilities and could also heal others. Tang San was thinking that completing the first divine trial already took 3 months, and afterwards, treating even more serious injuries for other divine trials would probably multiply the time required. Now it was good, he had a healing spirit ability and could finally let loose and act. What Tang Hao was clearly more concerned about was the 1st spirit ability of Tang San's clear sky hammer. Now that your clear sky hammer also has a spirit ring, let me see how your 1st spirit ability is. All right. Without saying another word, Tang San instantly executed the disorder-splitting wind hammer method, smashing straight down at Tang Hao's head. Tang Hao's brow furrowed slightly. Little San's performance had changed quite a bit compared to before. he had actually become so impulsive, smashing down at his head without even saying hello. Changing to before, little San would definitely have said something before acting, and wouldn't have targeted such a vital spot. However, Tang Hao was after all at the realm of a spirit Douluo, possessing even the vision of a titled Douluo, so of course he wouldn't be thrown into too much panic by Tang San. While exchanging blows, Tang Hao also spoke out to remind Tang San of the points to watch out for in the hammer method. Nonsense, take this hammer. At some point, Tang San's eyes had turned completely red, mixed with a frightening madness. This time, Tang Hao was completely unsettled. The disorder-splitting wind hammer method was not a crazy indiscriminate hammer method. Tang San's current state was simply like a mad demon. The more he hammered, the madder he got, and the madder he got, the more he hammered. Chapter 237, Tang San has lost his mind, Shrek rebels. Little San, stop. I said stop. Tang Hao tried several times to make Tang San stop fighting, but Tang San turned a deaf ear. Furthermore, Tang San, who had always been extremely respectful to him as a father, actually uttered filthy and unbearable words to him. Seeing that persuasion was useless, Tang Hao forcibly broke through Tang San's disorder-splitting wind hammer method and pinned him to the ground. Calm down, little San. Tang Hao was very worried that something would happen to Tang San. If even Tang San, his only hope, ran into trouble, no matter how strong Tang Hao was, he wouldn't be able to bear it. Father, let me go, I'm fine. Just as Tang Hao was anxiously thinking about what to do, Tang San's calm voice came through. Little San, are you all right? Tang Hao gradually reduced his strength, and Tang San showed no intention of suddenly rebelling, which made Tang Hao believe that Tang San had recovered. Little San, what on earth is going on with you? Why did you become like you lost your reason? I'm sorry, father. That was the effect of my clear sky hammer spirit ring. It was my first time using it, and I didn't control it well. Is this spirit ring so demonic? Tang Hao looked at Tang San worriedly. Is there something wrong with this spirit ring? If you are not confident, don't use the first spirit ability anymore. No, father, I can feel the power of this spirit ring, which allows me to draw strength from anger. Please believe me, I will definitely master this spirit ring. Tang San's voice was mixed with indisputable firmness. Power, he needed power. Moreover, Tang San felt that it was normal for the power of the god of destruction to have such a bad influence. After all, even the god of destruction himself was sometimes invaded by thoughts of destruction, so what was this compared to that? How could it be possible to master the god positions of two god kings without paying some price? However, Tang San was full of confidence. Since he was able to master two god positions in his past life, even if one of the first-ranked god positions in this lifetime was replaced by a god-king god position, he could still drive them perfectly. Tang Hao helplessly sighed. All right, but every time you try this first spirit ability, I must be present. I promise you. When Tang San turned and left, Tang Hao still had a look full of worry. Can little San really successfully master such a demonic spirit ring? On the other side, Dai Mubai and the others looked at Tang San walking over and barely squeezed out a smile. San, brother San, congratulations on your greatly improved strength. When you make it big in the future, don't forget us brothers. Not to mention students like Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun, even teachers like Flender felt a bit chilled in their hearts. Although Tang San and Tang Hao walked some distance away when they fought earlier, they could still see some of the situation from afar. When Tang San went crazy, he even shouted about killing Tang Hao. How could people not be afraid of such a lunatic who had mastered even greater power? Tang San smiled gently. Rest assured, after I become a god, I will definitely take you all to the god realm, and we of Shrek will share eternal life together. Thank you, brother San. Ma Hongjun and the others were both scared and filled with a bit of anticipation. If they could become gods, the injuries they suffered and the pain they endured would be considered worth it. The celestial maidens of the god realm, if they could be used to vent evil fire, the taste should far exceed that of mortals on the Douluo continent. However, they heard a devil-like voice ring out again. However, I still need to ask you for a favor. Ma Hongjun and the others were almost about to cry. 3 months ago, Tang San said those words asking for help, and then expressionlessly broke their arms. Their injuries had just healed. Was Tang San going to do it again? What kind of crappy divine trial is this? Which improper god would come up with such a tormenting divine trial? Brother San, don't be impulsive. If you need spirit masters as divine trial materials, we will go help you catch a few back. Rest assured, however many you want, we will catch. Whatever cultivation you want, we will catch. Even Flender and the others started chiming in. That's right, Mubai and the others aren't strong enough, but there's still us. Catching some spirit masters back is definitely no problem. Flender and the others had only suspected at first that the injuries Dai Mubai and the others suffered were because of Tang San. After completing the divine trial, Tang San directly stopped pretending, sending a chill through Flender and the others. Someone who could cruelly attack their companions, was it possible that they would talk about bringing them to become gods? Not to mention a shrewd person like Flender, even Dai Mubai didn't quite believe it. He suffered the heaviest injuries, and all he felt was Tang San's overwhelming malice. What a pity, not just anyone can help me complete the divine trial. Ma Hongjun and the others were about to cry. What kind of crappy divine trial is this, specifically designating them for torment? Couldn't they switch to some other people? Rest assured, this time it's not just you. Tang San said to Flender and the others. Dean, please help pick 2 teachers and come help me with a favor too. Tang San, what do you mean by this? Isn't it enough that you tormented Mubai and the others, and now you want to lay hands on the teachers too? Lu Erlong was the first one who couldn't hold back. Yu Xiaoging's life and death were unknown, and she was already full of suppressed anger. As a student, Tang San didn't think about saving his teacher, but instead wanted to lay hands on them for a bit of benefit. What kind of character was this? Do you have an objection? At this time, Tang Hao also walked over. Being in a bad mood, Tang Hao's whole aura appeared somewhat terrifying. Although Lu Erlong was afraid, she was likewise full of suppressed fire, and she was also worried about Yu Xiaoging's safety. Of course, if Yu Xiaoging fell into a tender trap, she would only have more life qi. She felt that Tang Hao and his son owed them a lot, and they were already in the wrong to begin with, yet they still made such excessive demands, she had to stand up for herself. But Flender, who saw the situation clearly, tightly pulled her back. Tang Hao and his son were practically no different from being crazy right now. If they offended them now, goodness knows what the consequences would be. Forget it, forbearance brings peace and quiet, and taking a step back opens up vast vistas. Little San, whoever you want to help, choose for yourself. Flender didn't help Tang San pick. If they really did as Tang San said, the teachers chosen by him would definitely be dissatisfied with him. Shrek Academy had already fallen to this state. If people's hearts split further, it would be even more doomed. Flender even felt that Yu Xiaoging being taken away by Tang San was done on purpose. If Yu Xiaoging were still here, the 3 of them of the Golden Triangle using a spirit fusion skill might not be unable to contend with a Tang Hao who was missing an arm. Plus the other teachers of Shrek being able to suppress Tang San, maybe they could shake off Tang Hao and the others. Alright then, I'll pick myself. Seeing that Flender didn't fall for it, Tang San didn't insist and started picking himself. Teacher Zhao Wuji, Teacher Li Yusong, Teacher Lu Qibing, then I'll have to trouble you. Although Lu Erlong's attitude made Tang San very unhappy, she was considered half a mistress after all, and he, Tang San, was a person who respected his teachers and valued the Tao. Flender the Dean still had his uses, so he would be left for later. The expressions of the 3 teachers chosen by Tang San all changed. They were all long-established spirit masters and had suffered quite a few injuries. They wouldn't be afraid of a little pain. But who knew to what extent Tang San would go this time? Even if they got past this time, what about the future? Did they have to be coerced and tormented by Tang San forever? Tang San, how dare you? Dean, let's rebel. Zhao Wuji and the others all revealed their spirits. Even though your Tang Hao's strength is strong, you were injured after all and your strength is not what it used to be. With so many of us, we can surely fight to the death and perish together, right? Chapter 238, Group Binding Incident. three-way fusion of divine force, god position, and divine artifact. Why won't you listen? Obviously, as long as you do as I say and help me complete the divine trial, there will be benefits for you as well. All members of Shrek were hung on the surrounding trees by blue-silver grass. Zhao Wuji and the others were unwilling to let Tang San torture them at will, and Dai Mubai and the others, who had already suffered torture once, were even less willing to endure the pain over and over again. Those teachers who had not yet been chosen by Tang San were also swept up. It could be said that Shrek's resentment towards the Tang father and son had accumulated for a long time. If it didn't erupt this time, it would erupt at another opportunity. But unfortunately, Tang Hao was chased everywhere by Spirit Hall, but dealing with scum like them was still a piece of cake. Furthermore, Tang San was now a spirit emperor as well. Under the chaotic cloak wind hammer technique, Shrek was turned upside down amidst waves of wailing. Originally, only 3 teachers were needed to help Tang San complete the divine trial, but now it had turned into everyone being injured. Brother, third brother, I was wrong. Didn't I not really do anything? You just... Seeing Tang San walking towards him first, Ma Hongjun was so scared that his pants were about to get wet. Rest assured, just endure it and it will pass, I will cure you. Tang San's tone was bizarrely gentle. However, this gentleness of his not only failed to comfort Ma Hongjun and the others, but instead sent a chill rising from the bottom of their hearts. Tang San was getting crazier and more terrifying. However, at this moment, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky and struck another large tree. The large tree immediately collapsed and smashed towards Tang San. Ma Hongjun and the others widened their eyes. Has the heavens finally opened their eyes, unable to watch Tang San's actions any longer? Bang tilde. Tang San did not dodge or evade, shattering the tree, smashing down overhead into pieces with a single hammer strike. An accident of this extent could not hurt him. However, the debris splashed by a stone also struck by the lightning brushed across Tang San's face, and warm blood flowed down Tang San's face. Tang San did not wipe the blood on his face, instead deeply raising his head to look at the sky. He did not believe this bolt of lightning was any accident or coincidence, someone must be targeting him. As for the suspect, who else could it be besides Asura God? Little San, are you all right? Tang Hao was startled and hurriedly came over to ask about the situation. I'm fine. Tang San withdrew his gaze looking at the sky. Even knowing it was done by Asura God, so what? For a day one does not become a god, one can only endure. While fiercely keeping score against Asura God in his heart once more, Tang San also harbored resentment towards the god of destruction and goddess of life. You 2 pieces of trash, your legacy was backstabbed, yet you didn't even know to step in and stop it in time. If it were me, Tang San thought of his days as a god king in his past life. How could it ever come to others condescendingly toying with him? It was always he who laid out 10,000-year grand plans to manipulate the destinies of others. When I become a god. While thinking about the days of becoming a god king once more, Tang San fiercely crushed Ma Hongjun's bones. This time it was even more ruthless. Tang San started directly from Ma Hongjun's pinky finger. Ah tilde. Listening to the screams coming from beside his ear, a cozy smile finally appeared on Tang San's face. This sound really was pleasant to the ears. And Tang Hao, who had been anxiously watching Tang San, felt a bit chilled in his heart at this moment as well. Now it was Ma Hongjun and the others, if the subsequent divine trial fell on him. Would little San be just as cruel, or even joyful? Tang Hao hurriedly shook his head, throwing this thought to the back of his mind. No way, no matter how ruthless little San was, he wouldn't go so far as to treat him like this. Little San had always been very filial. God realm. Tang San firmly believed that Asura God made a move, and indeed that was the case. Having discussed the divine force fusion matters with the god of evil and goddess of kindness for a long time, they had neglected their attention towards Tang San. Now that the discussion had come to an end, Asura God immediately looked towards Tang San, catching sight of the large-scale binding scene at a glance. As for that bolt of lightning, it was merely something he did casually. He didn't plan to strike Tang San to death with a single bolt of lightning either. After all, Tang San had been given to the god of destruction by the god of evil and the others, and he certainly didn't want to get beaten up by the god of destruction again. However, even if he couldn't directly kill Tang San, giving him a scare was still good. Offended him, the Asura god, and still wanted to live a stable life. Asura, you're acting up again. Tang San is the god of destruction's person, and we are still counting on the god of destruction's help now. If the god of destruction's life chi flares up, you can go put out the fire yourself. Asura god made his move right in front of the god of evil and goddess of kindness without any concealment at all. Rest assured, I know what I'm doing and won't kill him. Am I not just testing Tang San to see if he can shoulder a great responsibility? Asura god explained with a smile. The god of evil did not pursue the matter further, they would talk if the god of destruction's life chi really flared up. Anyway, Asura god was resistant to beatings and wouldn't be beaten to death so easily. Let's go, let's head to Destruction Castle. On the way, the goddess of kindness said to Asura god. In addition to helping Su Chen complete the divine force fusion, we also need to further consider the fusion of the god position and divine artifact. The task of asking the god of destruction for help later will be handed over to you. You also know that the god of destruction values god realm rules very much, and it is not convenient for evil and me to violate the rules of the god realm either. This mission belongs to you and no one else. Aside from divine force fusion, the god of evil and the others also wanted to go a step further, fusing the god position and divine artifact into one as well. Only in this way could their powers be considered truly fused, leaping to another level. And by doing so, they would inevitably interfere with the lower realm to varying degrees. The god of evil and goddess of kindness were thin-skinned and found it hard to open their mouths to make the god of destruction turn a blind eye to such blatant violations of god realm rules. It just so happened that Asura god, this guy who forcefully squeezed in, was here. If he didn't take the blame, who would? The god of evil and goddess of kindness even felt that having Asura god participate was actually not bad. At the very least, some dirty deeds that were inconvenient for them to handle could all be left to Asura god to do. This could also reflect his value. Anyway, Asura god currently had so many lice he didn't itch anymore. Violating rules wasn't the first time either, so this responsibility belonged to him alone. Asura god's mouth twitched slightly. Only now do they remember his usefulness, right? When did he, Asura god, degenerate into a professional scapegoat? How would the gods of the god realm view him in the future? He might even get the flattering title of the darkness of the god realm. Asura god was obviously unwilling to submit directly. You also know that my relationship with destruction is not good. If I ask him, it is very likely to backfire. How about? Asura god blinked at the god of evil and goddess of kindness. Giving you a nice face, huh? Just as Asura god was halfway through blinking, the god of evil's fist arrived. The god of evil finally understood that when talking to Asura god, fists were still the most useful. They hadn't beaten him when discussing divine force fusion with him, and now he actually dared to bargain. The goddess of kindness hurriedly broke up the fight. Asura, don't fight, just discuss it properly. This matter all started because of you. Since you want to hitch a free ride with us, do you not want to do anything at all? Just waiting to take advantage. You guys. Chapter 239, The Aggrieved Asura God and Elder Brother Destruction. Asura God felt inexplicable grief and indignation. Goddess of kindness certainly knew how to stop a fight brilliantly. What kind of fight was that? It was clearly the god of evil beating it unilaterally. It didn't even raise a hand or put up any defense. Could this even be considered a fight? You couldn't possibly say its eye socket struck the god of evil's fist. Asura god was filled with suppressed anger, secretly cursing in its heart, a pair of shameless wretches. One was responsible for beating, and the other for persuading, playing it around in circles. Trying to reason with this pair of scoundrels seemed completely hopeless. The god of evil glanced sideways at Asura god. Asura, what is your kid thinking inside? Are you cursing me? No. Asura god said hastily. I was thinking of your two wise opinions, and this task should indeed be completed by me. That's more like it. For a major event like breaking the shackles, we must work together with one heart. Rest assured, we won't treat you as an outsider. Asura god nodded repeatedly. Yes, being with you too, I often feel the warmth of home. The three of them came to Destruction Castle in a harmonious atmosphere. After a bout of pleasantries, both the god of evil and goddess of kindness looked at Asura god. Now it was its turn to go up. Asura god curled its toes tightly against the ground. For Asura god, asking the god of destruction for help was even harder to accept than being beaten by the god of destruction. But under the god of evil's threatening gaze and the goddess of kindness's soothing look, Asura god had no choice but to bite the bullet and step forward. Cough. Destruction, I want to. The god of evil hastily interrupted. Asura, why are you so clueless? Given the god of destruction's current strength and status, how can you address him directly by name? At the very least, you should call him elder brother. Asura, God didn't even know how to ask people for help, the god of evil was watching anxiously. Couldn't it even say a few nice words? Did it have to come off so stiffly? The god of destruction also saw clearly that Asura god had a favor to ask of him. Asura, if you have something to say, just say it directly. We are all deities in the god realm. Even though we had some conflicts in the past, if you need help, under the premise of not violating my principles, not breaking the god realm's rules, not affecting my personal mood, and not, I might still be able to help. Hearing the god of destruction's string of no's, Asura god gripped its divine robe tightly. Adding such a long string of preconditions, was this the posture of someone wanting to help? It, Asura, in all its life, was never inferior to others. Now had it come to bowing its head to the god of destruction. Asura god felt two burning gazes looking at it, and the urge to hurry them along was self-evident. Fine, 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 you are all in cahoots, leaving all the sadness and loneliness to me. Dester. Destruction elder brother. Asura, what did you say? I don't seem to have heard clearly. Asura god threw caution to the wind. Elder brother Asura, your younger brother wants to ask you for a favor. Oh, so you're asking for help. Why didn't you say so earlier? There's no need to be so polite. The god of destruction's mouth couldn't stop turning upwards. The former old rival bowing its head to call him younger brother, how delightful it was. Asura god's body seemed to have shrunk a notch, it always felt like it was now an inferior deity. It's like this, we. The god of evil's cough rang out once more. If Asura god said, we, the favor was owed by all three of them together, whereas, I, meant it was owed by Asura god alone. It couldn't let Asura god gloss this over. Asura god thought with some malice in its heart, exactly who was injured here, me or you? Liking to cough so much, sooner or later it would beat it back. Asura god had already comprehended a set of cultivation technique called the AQ spirit on its own, and instantly felt its entire spirit sublimate. Elder brother destruction, it's me. I want to send the god position and divine artifact of myself, big brother evil, and big sister kindness down to Douluo continent in advance. Since Su Chen wants to fuse our three divine forces, the god position and divine artifact naturally need to be fused together as well. Subsequently, I also have to help Su Chen plan. After all, with his power of not yet having become a god, it's not enough to complete it alone. So that's how it is. The god of destruction frowned with difficulty. It's no small matter for all your god positions and divine artifacts to enter Douluo continent, especially since you, Asura, made mistakes before. You previously forced the Asura demon sword to become Su Chen's spirit. Rarely seeing Asura god bow its head and soft pedal, the god of destruction somehow had to put on airs. Your younger brother was indeed foolish in the past and committed quite a few mistakes. Elder brother, you are magnanimous, your younger brother is deeply grateful. As it spoke, Asura god cupped its hands and bowed deeply to the god of destruction, a waist that wouldn't bend even when being beaten. Hey, younger brother Asura, why go this far? Please get up quickly. The god of destruction also felt it was about enough. After all, this was something beneficial to Su Chen, so Asura god shouldn't give up. Although this matter is difficult, it concerns your future after all. I'll just pretend I didn't see anything. Saying this, the god of destruction even sighed. Both the god of evil and goddess of kindness lit up in their eyes. The god of destruction, an iron-faced judge who wouldn't even show leniency to Tang-san, the legacy he favored, could actually go this far. It was already not easy. The god of destruction truly was a good person. Upon hearing this, Asura god raised its head in surprise. In its view, this hardcore stubborn element, the god of destruction, would most likely not agree. Even if he reluctantly agreed, he would still have to humiliate it thoroughly, making it lose face, lose all dignity, and owe a huge pile of promises. After all, Asura god asked itself in its heart, if it were placed in his shoes, it definitely wouldn't be this easy to talk to. Therefore, despite having just bowed its head to the god of destruction under coercion, most of the resentment in Asura god's heart dissipated, and a sense of touching emotion actually arose. The god of destruction truly was an honest man. Asura god hadn't expected the god of destruction to be so cold on the outside yet warm on the inside. Had it known earlier, it would have built a good relationship with destruction much sooner. Many thanks, elder brother. In the future, whenever my, Asura's, strength makes even a tiny bit of progress, I must thank elder brother for fulfilling it. Asura god's shout of, elder brother, this time was much more sincere. For such an honest, easily coaxed good person, shouting, elder brother, a few times wasn't a loss, especially with solid, tangible benefits. The god of destruction waved his hand. You flatter me. However, how do you plan to fuse the god position and divine artifact? Just fusing the divine force requires Su Chen to go all out. With the addition of the god position and divine artifact, not only will Su Chen lack the strength to handle it, but if they are crammed into him all at once, Su Chen won't be able to bear it either. Asura god chuckled. We have also considered this matter, and we have already figured out. Cough, cough. The god of evil's cough rang out right on cue. Kindness and I have considered this matter and come up with a relatively secure method. That is to find an extra vessel for our god position and divine artifact, just like Asura god had Su Chen's special blue-silver grass spirit beast carry. The power of the Asura demon sword. It hardened, Asura god's fists hardened. When it came to taking the blame and owing favors, it always had to do it, but when it came to showcasing wisdom and sharing the fruits of success, you two scoundrels both stood up, right? And calling it a method you thought of. Wasn't the idea of finding a scabbard for Su Chen something I thought of on the spur of the moment? Do you two still want any face? Asura god couldn't help moving a bit closer to the god of destruction. Compared to those two shameless fellows, the god of evil and goddess of kindness, the god of destruction's nobility and integrity were about to overflow. How did it end up teaming up and living with evil and kindness? How wonderful it would be if the cooperation partner was destruction. It definitely wouldn't be holding a belly full of anger like it was now. Goosebumps broke out all over the god of destruction. What kind of look was that fellow Asura giving? Seeing it made him really want to punch it. Chapter 240, Large-Scale Holster Selection Plan, Good-for-Nothing Spirit Beasts. After learning about the plans of the god of evil and the others, the god of destruction felt quite emotional. He had previously considered this kind of operation to find a scabbard for Su Chen. After all, seeking the god positions of the two great god kings for Su Chen might be a bit strenuous to bear with the strength of a single person alone, and having holsters and the like could also reduce Su Chen's pressure. But later on, Su Chen performed so brilliantly, and the god of evil and the goddess of kindness treasured Su Chen like anything, having already considered all of these. As for the Asura god, who had meddled in, Su Chen did not need to worry about him either, as he had arranged a scabbard for Su Chen by himself. Now, in order to achieve the fusion of the god positions and divine artifacts, they were going to arrange a scabbard for Su Chen once again. What kind of people do you plan to let act as the vessels for the god positions and divine artifacts? The god of destruction asked curiously. He had to give instructive opinions. This was what he had prepared to arrange for Su Chen from the very beginning, so he had to have some sense of participation no matter what. The god of evil said, as the bearer of the divine artifact, they must be sturdy and durable enough, and cannot be blown apart by the power and law contained within the divine artifact. Moreover, Asura has already found a scabbard for the Asura demon sword. That blue-silver grass can barely be considered a spirit beast, and to bear my judgment scales and kindness's heart of kindness, we also need to find a spirit beast of over 100,000 years to bear them. The fusion of divine artifacts and god positions was also an unprecedented matter, so the god of evil and the others were relatively cautious. As for the god positions, we must select human spirit masters whose attributes are relatively compatible to act as the vessels. While speaking, the god of evil also observed the expression of the god of destruction. By doing this, they would definitely have a direct intervention on the Douluo continent, and the intervention would not be just a little bit. The strength of the god of destruction was extraordinary now. If he disagreed, it would really be quite troublesome. Upon noticing the slight frown on the brow of the god of destruction, the hearts of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness hung in suspense. Did destruction feel that they were going too far? It is acceptable, but the vessels you selected must be shown to me in advance. The god of destruction wanted to master the ultimate decision-making power. In addition to considering the matching degree of the bearing and fusion of the god positions and divine artifacts, they also had to seek Su Chen's opinion. The opinion of him as the person involved was also very precious. After all, whether it was a scabbard, a holster, or a god position tray, it was ultimately used by Su Chen. Whether shoes fit or not, only the feet know best. Whether the vessel is suitable or not, only Su Chen, the person who experiences it firsthand, has the most say. That goes without saying. The god of evil and the others let out a sigh of relief with joy on their faces. It was good that the god of destruction did not block it. Even if you didn't mention it, we would definitely seek your opinion. You are walking ahead of us now, and your view of problems must be more comprehensive and profound than ours. As they spoke, the four great god kings began to patrol the Douluo continent within the destruction castle, looking for suitable vessels. The Asura god was much more relaxed. His Asura demon sword had already found a vessel, and he only needed to find someone to bear the god position. He still had the leisure to say to the god of evil and the goddess of kindness, "I think you don't need to be so selective. Aren't there two spirit beasts of over 100,000 years by Su Chen's side? One of them is even over 600,000 years old, which is more than enough to bear the divine artifact." What the Asura god said was naturally the Ice Empress and the Snow Empress, who were already in the Heaven Human sect. Ever since they were brought to the Heaven Human sect from the far north by Su Chen, they actually felt more at ease than when they were in the far north. Moreover, the ice spring of the ice and fire yin-yang well was also of great benefit to their cultivation. Su Chen originally prepared to treat them as reserve spirit rings, ready to be used on the life-protecting shield. However, later on, the spirit rings of the life-protecting shield were all provided by the goddess of kindness during the divine trial, so they weren't used. Of course, Su Chen did not support them for nothing. Nowadays, spirit tool workshops were blossoming everywhere on the Douluo continent, requiring the consumption of a massive amount of energy. It would be a pity not to utilize the cultivation of the Ice Empress and the Snow Empress. Therefore, Su Chen gave them a task: to charge large-scale energy storage spirit tools. Now they frequently charged until not a single drop of spirit power was left, then cultivated, and after recovering, continued charging. And truth be told, under such massive release and collection, their strength actually grew a bit faster. However, for the Snow Empress and the Ice Empress, this kind of mechanical, boring, and repetitive work was truly tedious. Moreover, every time their spirit power rapidly drained into the energy storage spirit tools, that feeling of emptiness was very uncomfortable. However, since they had already come to the Heaven Human sect, it was already considered good that they weren't made to tighten screws. How could they be allowed to refuse this easy task? "Sister, I miss the far north." After once again fully charging an energy storage spirit tool with spirit power, the Ice Empress said with a pale face. Spirit beasts from the land of ice and snow that had been carefree for a lifetime never expected that they could still live a 007 lifestyle. "Don't talk nonsense. Haven't you noticed yet? The sect master has great luck and a great background. A little bit of bitterness and tiredness now is nothing. Even if we cannot become gods, it is still good if we can exempt ourselves from the heavenly tribulation." "Oh, sister, I know. At this moment, Du Guyan brought over another batch of energy storage spirit tools. You too, speed up a bit. This batch of spirit tools must be sent out within 3 days. Looking at the piled-up energy storage spirit tools, the Snow Empress and the Ice Empress looked at each other in speechless despair. God Realm. The god of evil and the goddess of kindness shook their heads vigorously. No way, not to mention that the attributes of these two spirit beasts do not match, they also look completely drained, they are not suitable. Unlike you, we cannot be too casual in selecting the bearers of the divine artifacts. Asura god. Using the method I thought of, yet mocking me, are you two even human? However, thinking of that blue-silver grass bearing the Asura demon sword, the Asura god did not feel any regret. Although it was chosen nearby at the time and didn't go through much thought. That blue-silver grass was not an ordinary spirit beast either. After being forged and refined by Su Chen, metal was born from wood, and it already had the foundation of a prototype divine artifact. Although the attributes did not completely match for bearing the Asura god sword, it could enhance the sharpness of the Asura demon sword, which was enough. After a search, the gazes of the god of evil and the goddess of kindness still fell on the Star Do Great Forest. The spirit beasts of over 100,000 years were the most numerous here, and the attributes of 2 of them were also the most suitable. Destruction, do you think those 2 spirit beasts are suitable? The god of destruction also looked toward the Star Do Great Forest. An emerald swan and a dragon, they can barely pass. The ones chosen by the god of evil and the goddess of kindness were precisely the emerald swan Baiji and the abyss magic dragon King Ziji. Baiji was a healing-type spirit beast. Countless spirit beasts had been healed by her since her birth, and she herself carried the kind thoughts of many spirit beasts. As for Ziji, she was an abyss magic dragon and also possessed the abilities of death and withering, making her quite compatible to bear the divine artifact of the god of evil. The goddess of kindness sighed and said, "The number of spirit beasts of over 100,000 years is still too small, and the range of available choices is too narrow. These spirit beasts are really good for nothing." Indeed, the number of spirit beasts of over 100,000 years was not large, and those exceeding 200,000 years were even fewer. As for why there were so few, don't ask, asking would be impolite.